All ready? All right, she'll come in. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, February 27th, 2023 meeting of the City of Tuscaloosa Zoning Board of Adjustment. I'd like to start by introducing myself. I'm Rob Stewart, Vice Chair of the ZBA, and I will start to my far left and have our members introduce themselves.
Tim Gillum.
Michelle Coley.
Paul Rollins Jr.
Linda Ford.
Joseph Eatman.
And I would like at this time to acknowledge all the city staff that's in attendance, starting with Miss Emily Hayes, Neighborhood Resources Coordinator, Mr. Jonathan Bowen, Planner, Mr. Mike Gardner, Associate City Engineer, from the Office of City Attorney, Mr. Oto Tumaokumo, Deputy City Attorney. Oto will be leaving us after this meeting and will be replaced moving forward by Ms. Kim King, Associate City Attorney. And thank you for your service, Oto. Big help. And in the back, we've got Mr. Kevin Jones working with the audio and video, and Miss Angie Terrell, Administrative Assistant. The Board of Adjustment does not have the authority to enact zoning laws or special exceptions, nor does the board have authority to rule on claims of equal protection of the law or the fairness or unfairness of any zoning ordinance. By virtue of state law and city ordinances, the purpose of the ZBA is as follows: to hear appeals from decisions of the zoning officer of the city, to grant special exceptions to the zoning code in accordance with the terms as established by the City Council, and to grant variances from the terms of the zoning code when, owing to the special conditions, a literal enforcement of the code would result in an unnecessary hardship. No one factor determines what is an unnecessary hardship, but all relevant factors, when taken together, must indicate that the plight of the property in question is unique in that it cannot be put reasonably to a conforming use because of the limitations imposed upon it by reason of its classification in a specified zone. Kind of the working definition of an unnecessary hardship is as follows: the property cannot be put to any reasonable use under its current zoning classification. It must be a unique and peculiar difficulty relating to the property of a serious and significant nature. It must relate to the property and not any personal issues. This includes economic, financial gain or loss. A variance may not be granted where the property owner merely suffers a financial loss of a kind that is common to all of the property owners in an area. Circumstances that are not hardships are self-inflicted or self-created, inconvenience, or purely personal. The Zoning Board of Adjustment, by virtue of state law and City of Tuscaloosa ordinance, does not have the jurisdiction or authority to consider, interpret, and/or enforce any term or condition of subdivision covenants and/or homeowners associations, rules, or regulations. These matters are therefore not relevant areas of inquiry by the board on any petition. Such covenants or regulations are between the private parties involved and not the ZBA. That having been said, any decision made by the ZBA on any particular case does not necessarily preclude the enforcement of such subdivision covenants and/or HOA rules or regulations by other lawful means. This is a public hearing. It is being recorded, videotaped, and is streaming live on the city's website, Facebook, as well as on local cable TV. Proper decorum, civility, and respect for others is required at all times. When you're at the podium, please speak directly into the microphone and state your name and address for the record. All comments should be directed to the board. No questions or comments are to be directed directly to city staff. The board will limit remarks to 3 minutes, except when responding to questions by the board. I would ask the city staff to confirm for the record that all the appropriate and required public and individual property owner notices for each case upon the docket of petitions now before the board have been made in accordance with the law.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The following procedure will be followed for each petition. This hearing is an opportunity for the petitioner to present their case, for the public to inquire and make their views known about the petition, and for the board members to gather relevant facts before making its decision. City staff will introduce the petition and present facts and information to the board concerning the same. The petitioner or the petitioner's designated representative will be asked to make comments and answer questions from the board. The members of the public will then be afforded an opportunity to make inquiries and comments. At the close of the public comments, the petitioner will be asked to respond to the comments if necessary. The chair may then permit the public to respond, but only to any new issues raised by the petitioner in rebuttal. At the close of public comment, or once the board is satisfied that it has received all relevant information on a petition, the chairman will close further comment or discussion, and the board will then discuss the matter. The chair will read into the record the motion to approve the request, along with any conditions set by the board, and the board members will commence voting. 4 votes are required to approve any petition, not a simple majority of the vote of the board. Please leave all signs in the yard where they were put by staff. Will pick those signs up as soon as possible. Any party aggrieved by any final judgment or decision of the board of the zoning adjustment may, within 15 days thereafter, appeal therefrom to the circuit court by filing with such a board a written notice of appeal specifying the judgment or decision from which the appeal is taken. The board members have a chance to review. The board members have had a chance to review tonight's agenda items. Do any of the members have a conflict of interest with any of the cases on tonight's agenda?
Yes, I do with ZBA 0723.
When it comes time to read that petition and hear that case, Mr. Gilliam will step out, and Mr. Eatman will vote as supernumerary in his place for that case. The following cases on the agenda have been continued or withdrawn. Ms. Hayes?
ZBA 0523 and ZBA 1923 were both withdrawn by staff.
Okay. Ms. King? Are you, or Mr. Tomacoma?
We have one pending appeal in circuit court. That's Ziafin Yi versus Zoning Board of Adjustment, case number CV 2022-000089. That's the appeal of a special exception approving a bed and breakfast at Wood Manor.
Has that been docketed?
No, it's not on any docket. It's a non-jury trial.
Okay. All right. Is that all?
That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So now at this point, y'all will vote to select a chairman and vice chairman to serve for the 2023 fiscal year. So does anybody have a nomination for the chair?
I would like to nominate Rob Stewart for chair and Michelle Coley for vice chair.
I second.
Perfect. So I guess we can go ahead and start voting with Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
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 Okay, the motion is approved for chair and vice chair for the 2023, remaining of the 2023 calendar year.
Well, I'm going to give y'all a brief overview of our framework meeting from this month. We did discuss the development standards, mobility and connectivity, landscape and buffering, open space, neighborhood compatibility, form and design, as well as green building incentives. So these sections and subsections do carry forward many of the regulations from our current code, but new sections, clarifications, and modifications have been incorporated throughout to outline modern regulations, provide clarity, improve user friendliness, and support decision makers in reviewing development applications. The focus for mobility and connectivity is to ensure that development are served by coordinated multimodal systems, both internally and externally. The intent of these standards is to maximize safety of all users, reduce emergency response time, promote walking and biking, facilitate use of public transportation, as well as minimize congestion and traffic conflicts. Some notable provisions are it defines a correlation between transportation standards in the zoning ordinance and the subdivision regulations, emphasizes the importance of internal circulation for multiple modes with specific requirements for pedestrian access and safety, as well as defines regulations for connecting vehicular and pedestrian networks throughout individual developments. As for the landscape and buffer purpose, the focus of this is to promote and protect public health by providing planting and maintenance of natural trees, shrubs, and other plants. The intent of these standards is to encourage the use of native plants, mitigate against erosion and sedimentation, reduce stormwater runoff, preserve and maintain tree canopy and water tables, as well as protect and enhance property values. So one thing to remember with this is landscape and buffer standards are not purely aesthetic. Some notable changes to these provisions are it consolidates the current landscape and buffer standards into one location. It defines requirements for landscape plans, including site features, planting standards, and parking lot landscaping. It outlines specific alternatives or deviations permitted under the zoning as part of the landscape plan. It provides approved planting and supports the local environment. It introduces charts and graphics to illustrate regulations and desired intent from landscaping and buffering. So here's just a little example of what those graphics are going to look like, as well as the charts. As for open space, the focus of this is to preserve natural resources and establish new spaces or interactions within green space throughout the city. The intent of these standards is to protect the natural resources and features, provide civic and gathering spaces, enhance stormwater management, reduce urban heat island effect, as well as encourage active recreation. Some notable changes are the establishment of applicability for open space to specific zoning districts. It outlines minimum required open spaces, defines the type of open spaces across the city along with their purpose, design, and maintenance needs, as well as it provides regulations for features, locations, and relationship of open spaces to the development and surrounding area. As for neighborhood compatibility, the focus of this is to provide a proper transition and ensure compatibility between neighborhoods and non-residential developments. The intent is to protect the character of existing neighborhoods, mitigate potential adverse impacts, use development form to guide transitions, as well as support pedestrian-oriented areas where multiple uses exist. It establishes applicability for requirements based on specific zoning districts. It outlines standards for building height, roof line, facades, and building orientation. It defines unique site standards for specific characteristics of development, provides procedure for evaluating neighborhood compatibility standards, and introduces graphics to illustrate regulations and desired intent for building form. Here's an example of those graphics. Form and design. Focus of this is to provide unique design standards for multifamily housing and large retail developments. The intent is to establish a baseline for development quality, promote greater compatibility between different land uses, provide clear standards and intents for building design, as well as align building design character types in the comprehensive plan. It establishes applicability for requirements based on specific types of developments. It outlines standards for building forms such as orientation, maximum length, materials, roof line, entrance location, etc., and encourages buildings to complement public streets by providing distinct architectural design features such as the following. Just some examples of those graphics. And finally, the green building incentive. So the purpose of this is to support the green building practices that align with and incentivize modern construction methods. The intent is to promote energy conservation, encourage alternative energy use, preserve water quality and use, support healthy landscaping practices, and incorporate urban agricultural opportunities. This just describes the applicability and intent for these incentives, outlines the procedures for seeking building incentives, defines the types of incentives, as well as introduces charts to describe the menu of incentives to promote national green building practices. So this was, again, all from our February 1st meeting. It is still online for you to go back and view in more detail. I know I kind of went through it really quickly, but it is all still on there. Just a reminder, on March 1st is our next meeting, and these are the things that we are going to discuss. Do y'all have any questions?
No, thank you.
Perfect. We'll move in. So again, these are the cases that are withdrawn, and Mr. Bowen is going to present the cases.
Good afternoon, Commission. The first case is ZBA 123. This was continued from the January meeting. So Kim Roberts petitions for a special exception for a short-term rental. This is at 3308 University Boulevard. It's Zone R1 in Council District 5. So here we have the location of that property, as well as a good aerial view of the property. Here we have a view of the structure from University Boulevard. Here you can kind of see the driveway a little bit clearer. We have some images that were provided by the applicant. This is a view from the driveway. They also have this paved parking area in front of the house. And then here's an example of two cars in the rear portion of the driveway. They also state that they have rear alley access. So again, here are some images provided by the applicant themselves. Here are the applicable regulations. So this is a new short-term rental. The petitioner states this is for 6 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. The owners are currently working on interior renovations. They obtained a building permit, but it was for a bathroom addition, so they are not permitted for any bedroom additions. The petitioner, like I mentioned earlier, stated that additional parking can be accessed from that rear alley. They are requesting 10 vehicles and 5 adults. If approved, staff recommends 4 vehicles and 8 adults. We did receive 5 public comments in opposition to this application. Included that was a signature or a petition with 15 signatures from surrounding neighbors. So the petitioner is here to speak in person.
Any questions?
Could you go back to the rear view?
Sure.
I drove by there and I did see it, but okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And while the petitioner is coming up, I will go ahead and make a note that the PowerPoint has a little typo in it. It's actually for 10 adults, 5 vehicles.
Okay. Thank you.
Got it.
Hello, I'm Kim Roberts, and I'm representing the owner for this property. They have completed the renovations to the home and reorganized the space in there so that they now have 6 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms for the house. It's a large home, and they've done extensive upgrades on it, and it looks good.
Okay, Ms. Roberts, I know the reason we continued it last time, there was an issue with the permit.
Yes, that's what I understand. So they went out and got a permit. They were doing the work with family members, so I'm not sure what that all involved.
Okay, and Ms. Hayes, could you enlighten us on the current status of the work and the permitted side for the city? What's
So-
been inspected?
I know that the owner did come by last Thursday, I believe it was, and finally got the approved permit, but they haven't gotten a CO for that bathroom yet, so they haven't gotten their final inspection yet.
So the permit was for a bathroom addition, okay? And before they did any other work, you described how many bedrooms were there in the house?
I believe it was 4 bedrooms.
So it was how many bathrooms at the time?
2,
So it was a 4-2,
right.
and they have a permit for a bathroom addition. So
That's my understanding,
4-3,
yes.
and they do not have a CO at this time.
Pardon?
They don't have a CO from the city yet.
Was that necessary for a bathroom?
Final inspection.
The
is just
final
basically-
inspection.
Yeah,
So-
I don't know.
Okay. Do
aware
not,
that they
back from
were-
the city? Okay.
Required to have an inspection,
Okay.
but, I mean, they have had a home inspection, and they've already been
Yeah,
inspected by the.
I understand that, but similarly, you've come before us in the past and shown additional parking, something that didn't
Right.
exist yet, and it was a plan. And in those instances, just for a point of reference, unless the work was fully done, and if it required an inspection, that's what we had to have, because you might be building out additional 2 bedrooms. If they're never cleared, they may not ever come to existence. So that's why we're asking those questions.
So it's just for the bathroom, I'm assuming.
Well, all that was permitted, is that right, Ms. Hayes, was for a bathroom addition, okay? So right now, that hasn't come to fruition, so we're basing our decision on the
On a
number of
2-bath?
occupants on what is there today,
Which is a 2-bath?
which is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath.
Okay,
So just making you
That's fine.
aware of that, okay?
I understand.
Okay. Any other questions?
Rob, they haven't got the CO yet?
No,
Okay.
not according to the city staff. Can you show the picture of the front? Do you have that? Okay, that's the front entrance, the single-lane
Right,
drive
it
coming
has
up.
That parking pad that can hold, well, it can hold 6 cars if you double stack. And then it has that other parking area that holds 2 on the front.
Okay. And I think that's a recent addition on
It
that
is, and
concrete
those other
work.
pictures with the back, because they weren't sure if they were going to add the driveway, but they went ahead and did the driveway. So really, all the cars would be able to park in the front.
Do you have anything else for us?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, it looks like we have one individual signed up, Mr. Ray Ballou. Is that correct? Okay, so let's see, it may be on a different sheet. But you can go ahead and go forward. Well, yes, sir, go ahead. It was Mr. Cornwell?
My name is Michael Cornwell. I live at 3304 University Boulevard East. I'm on the west side of this subject property here, 3308. I've lived there for over 25 years, and I watched this house be rebuilt after a tornado.
Mr. Cornwell, I'm going to interrupt you briefly. Now, we have a large crowd tonight, so we stated at the onset, we're going to put you on a timer. Everyone's going to have 3 minutes to comment, and you'll get that full 3 minutes. But it'll be on the screen behind me. You can see that.
Okay? This, we had 4 members from our neighborhood submit individual letters. We had a neighborhood petition. I understand the board has read over that and understand our opposition to this and why. I want to go over something else. That house still has 2 bedrooms. It's barely 2,000 square feet, including the little outhouse out there. It's got 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. The petition, which was filed December 28, says this under the short-term rental. This is submitted by Mrs. Roberts. This is a 6-bedroom, 3-bathroom home. No, at that time it was 2 bedrooms and 2 baths, with parking in front for up to 4 vehicles, and in the backyard off the alley for up to 4 more vehicles. That's all lawn back there. Those 4 vehicles were staged there. That's all grass. There's a small grove of trees in there with an ancient barbecue pit. There's never been a driveway back there. It's grass all the way to the street. The front driveway has 2 parking pads. One is 30 by 30. That's what she said on December 28th. When I came home from Mobile this January the 11th, they were excavating and put that pad in. It was poured Martin Luther King birthday. It did not exist when this was signed. We'd like permission to allow up to 10 adults at this property since we can easily accommodate so many vehicles. No, only at what's front there on that pad, and none of that had a permit. No permit was issued to do anything on this property until the 21st of January to put the 3rd bathroom in there. And there's been work going on ever since the last hearing when there was a request for a continuance because there's some issue about the wrong permit. There was no permit, there was no wrong issue. And all between then and getting that permit on the 21st, there have been workers over there cutting tile, carpenter, fabricating wood, doing things to the house, no permits. And we are not located in a residential neighborhood. Maybe that's the way we're thought of. My house was built in 1937. That's the Austin subdivision. And that's the 8th Street back there. It's not an alley. And there's no way to have any parking back there. On the bottom of the petition, there's this, certificate of applicant, which is Kimberly Roberts. I certify the foregoing facts to the best of my knowledge are true and correct. And she was saying there were 6 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms and all that parking on December 28th. There was none of that. That's a quiet neighborhood. It's been there for a long time. We like it that way. And to try to put 10 people in there, strangers, and now Kim Roberts also has one, number 7, Forest Drive, which is number, I think, 11 on tonight's docket. It's less than a block from that house and from my house. And I really don't want people out there game day drinking. I'm not against drinking. Drinking Thursday, drinking Friday, drinking Saturday, trying to get into there off University Boulevard. They wind up going back there. And
Mr. Cornwell, your time is up.
I'm speaking to everybody in that neighborhood.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a Mr. Ray Ballou? Yeah. Would you? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, that's all we have signed up. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak either for or against this petition? No? Okay. Ms. Roberts, will you come back to the podium, please? I think you heard what Mr. Cornwell had to say. Would you like to rebut any of that?
I think when we put in our request, we made it clear that that the house was going to be under renovations and was due to be completed in the winter, so that's what they have done. I don't know what the house looked like before the renovations. I've only seen it since they have been involved in the renovations. And there are definitely 6 bedrooms. I've been in there, I've seen the beds set up, and it's met all the egress requirements, and it qualifies for what they're doing.
Okay. So
In our full property management program, and along with our other properties, and
But I don't understand that. We're familiar with you and the properties. I guess the direct question is, go back and explain clearly, how many bedrooms were there originally and how many bathrooms?
my understanding is there were 4, 2 downstairs and 2 very large ones upstairs. And the ones upstairs are the ones that they divided up into 2 bedrooms on each side of the upstairs.
Okay, so you're saying they have 2 existing rooms or
Yes,
bedrooms to make
right.
2 more?
All of that was existing downstairs. I think one of those rooms might have been maybe a family room or something. It looked like it was an enclosed garage or something, and that they've made into a bedroom. And the other one, to me, looked like originally might have been a formal dining room, but it's all enclosed now with doors and has a bathroom connected to it. So,
Ms. Roberts, do you know the square foot of the
I
home
don't.
by any chance?
I would guess that it's somewhere around 2,400 square feet. It's large, the whole upstairs goes over the whole, covers the whole downstairs.
With the exception of the enclosed garage, then it's the same footprint of the house. I mean, nothing's changed.
Right, they have not added additional rooms or anything, it's all under the same roof.
Okay, thank you.
The bathroom renovation, are they adding a bathroom, they renovating?
They added a whole new bathroom upstairs.
So is that making it 2 bathrooms, or is
Right,
that?
so 2 bathrooms upstairs and 1 downstairs, and all 3 are full bathrooms.
Okay, so the bathroom addition is for a new bathroom, making it a three bathroom.
Correct.
Ms. Hayes, can you go back to the aerial view, please? Now, I know you've referenced the potential rear egress for additional parking. We're not considering that
No, because they have finished
at all.
Right, they have finished the driveway on the front, so
Right.
that's fine.
And based on Mr. Gardner's review of the petition on there, and city staff has agreed that only 4 cars maximum would be allowed. That's a very narrow or single lane entry off of that egress, off an extreme, in a somewhat of a curve on a very busy road. So maximum allowed for consideration, and we will go with that recommendation as far as consideration,
Okay.
is a total of 4 parking spaces. Okay. Is anything else?
And so
Hold on
you're
a second.
saying that, because when you look at the home, it says it was originally 2 bedrooms and 2 baths. And you're saying now they have converted 2 bedrooms into 6 bedrooms in that home?
Well, I don't know about the 2 bedrooms. When I was there, it's very clear downstairs that there's 2 bedrooms, and then there were 2 large, very large bedrooms upstairs that they've divided into 4. And then they added the extra bath so that there would be 2 bathrooms upstairs for those 4 bedrooms, and 1 full bath downstairs for those 2 bedrooms.
And so they've really made some bedrooms downstairs is what they've
Well, I
converted
think
some.
they probably reorganized the space would be what it looked like to me. Because there's also a very large common area on the right side of the house that they're using as the living room and dining room and their kitchen area and all. So there's plenty of space. And for short-term rentals, you don't need formal dining rooms and formal family room, living room, all those extra spaces we use in our everyday houses.
Ms. Roberts, it's a little confusing to me because on Zillow in 2022, it was 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and
See,
I'm
I've never
sorry,
seen it
I
as that.
I can't,
Yeah, I've never seen it as that. I've only, because I was not brought in on this until
oh, I
after they'd already
understand.
done the
But you've been
renovations.
in the home,
I have,
and you've seen the 6 bedrooms.
I have.
And what size beds are in these 6 bedrooms?
Kings, queens, and some bunk beds.
Seriously?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
at my recommendations. So, because I usually am the one that makes the recommendations on what bed sizes. The 2 smaller bedrooms have bunk beds in them because that's geared toward families with children. So the other rooms all have kings and queens.
So this is not an owner-occupied home?
It is not.
Correct. Okay, correct. Okay.
The owners live here locally, but we'll be managing it full-time for them.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the petitioner?
I have a question for the city. Since it was just brought up that this house was listed as a 2-bedroom in 2022, the petitioner states that it has 4 bedrooms. Is there anything that we can do at this point to confirm or verify actually how many bedrooms are in this house? Or moving forward?
Not since they didn't pull a permit for it.
I know when the owner came down, he was told the only permit that was required was for the bathroom. He discussed everything with them, and he was told he only needed to do one for the bathroom. So he did that.
Right, because he told us that he wasn't
And
doing
the
any
contractor
additional
for the
work.
driveway had his own builder's permit when he did the driveway. That the owner, it was through the contractor that did the driveway.
And I understand what you're saying about them converting I have issue with what you're saying about being converted downstairs. I can see 2 large bedrooms upstairs being split into 2, but it sounds like to me like a dining room, and I don't know if they truly are bedrooms with closets and so forth, or if they're just,
Actually, they've added all that.
you see what I'm saying? I would want to see that to really confirm, and not that you're not telling us the truth, is that I would like to see what's being considered a bedroom, because that's a lot of people that we're asking to put in that home. That's a lot of traffic, and that just, that seems like a lot of adjustment for that house.
So there's a window in every bedroom, is that correct?
Correct. There's, because if you look, well, I can't really tell, but the upstairs.
A
has
window and a
multiple-
closet, okay.
Yeah, they have
Right,
multiple
okay.
windows all the way around, so that when they divided everything up, so everything, that was why we had the inspector go over there and make sure everything was meeting egress requirements and everything was correct, because obviously we want things to be safe.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Roberts? No? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against this petition? Okay, sir. And please state your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Ray Ballou. I am at 3328, which is on the east side of this property. I actually inspected that home for purchasing myself prior to its last sale. That home was definitely set up as a 2-bedroom home with 2 bathrooms. Any area that would have been taken in as additional bedrooms would have been the space in the garage possibly, or the filled-in area. It used to be a carport. And then there was a den area at the front entrance of the home that could have been filled in. Once again, none of those had closet spaces at that time. The filling in of the 2 bedrooms upstairs to be split would make some really small bedrooms. But I would say as far as location for this to be a short-term rental, I'm actually in the market, working the market in Foley as well. So I'm very familiar with short-term rentals. I am concerned about the noise level and the traffic. I would like to speak to the traffic issue in coming into that location. Once again, y'all know this, it's in a curve, it's on a hill, it's in a very fast-moving flow of traffic in that area. So I am concerned about egress in and out of that driveway onto the main road. But I'm also concerned if any use is back on 8th Street, which she referred to, Ms. Roberts referred to as an alley. I am concerned that already the road coming down to the east side of my property, 34th or Forest Drive, is very dangerous already. It's also on a hill and a slight bit of a curve. So I do see when children are being dropped off with their buses there during the day, there's many times that I have heard people hit their brakes because they're driving too fast at that location already. And we do have a lot of flow through there, and there's not a lot of extra parking. A lot of times you have people parking on the side of the street. So you're limiting drive capability through there already. So that's all I've got to say. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, at this point, we're going to close public discussion and move to board comments. And if we could, start to my left with Mr. Gilliam.
I have concern that the permit is still open. They don't have a CO yet, so kind of approving this now. They could change even more. My thoughts are is to table this to a little more research is done until they get a CO on what they have.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with approving this evening. I feel like there's still speculation about the home and how it's been divided and what's being counted as a bedroom, and then the number of people that are being asked. Even with the city's recommendation, I'm not comfortable with that recommendation either.
Yeah, I think based on discrepancies from Zillow, from some neighboring property owners on what's actually in the house and what we've seen, and lacking obviously a CO on that, I'm in favor of continuing for 1 month and give the petitioner an opportunity to provide us that actual information. We'll know with the CO through city staff from the final inspection, but also in actual data of what exists in the home for us to make a proper decision.
I agree with my other board members. I'm not comfortable with approving this petition at this time due to the issues with the number of bedrooms.
I have to agree. There are too many discrepancies. I would be in favor of continuing to next month.
Okay, if there are no more comments, we'll move to a vote. ZBA-01-23, Bama B&B, Kim Roberts petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 3308 University Boulevard, zoned R1, Council District 5, to be continued for 1 month.
Yes.
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 Okay, the case has been continued for 1 month.
Next case is ZBA 623. Stephen Stroud petitions for a variance from the residential setback regulation. This is to allow the construction of an accessory structure at 35 University Circle. This is on R3H in Council District 4. So again, here we have the location of that property as well as an aerial view. Here we have the view of the primary structure, the front yard. This is the accessory structure in question. You can see it neighbors the property line to the west and to the rear. So the applicable regulations for the location of accessory structures, they have to be not less than 5 feet away from any lot line. So this request is for a variance from that residential setback regulation to construct an accessory structure garage. This current 1930s shed is in disrepair. It's rotten. They are actually going to the HPC for a complete demolition and rebuild of the structure. The garage currently sits on a concrete slab, and they will maintain that. They will rebuild in the exact same footprint. So the current shed is in that non-conforming state. It sits closer to 5 feet to both the rear and the western property line. So in order to construct it in the same footprint, they request a variance from those regulations. So again, this garage, it's accessed from that rear alley that you see. According to the petitioner, the original house and garage, they're not compliant with our current zoning requirements. And like I mentioned earlier, this project is going to the HPC at the March 8th meeting. So if it is approved, staff recommends that it be contingent upon that HPC approval of the demolition and rebuild. And this hearing is set for March 8th. So here we have the current site plan, and you can see the existing garage in the left-hand corner of your screen. And here we kind of have a closer up that shows those dimensions and setbacks for that garage. We did not receive any public comment for this application, and the petitioner is here to speak in person.
Any questions for Mr. Bowen?
No.
Thank you. If we could have Mr. Stroud come forward.
What we're basically trying to do is.
If you would.
Do it now?
Just your name and address for the record, please.
Oh, Stephen Stroud, 1401 Pinnacle Park Lane, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, 35406. Sorry.
Good.
What we're just trying to do, the garage is rotted in a lot of the areas, and we're trying to just replace it and bring it more up to date, and also change the garage door. The first build, it was a 2-car garage. Whoever had it later blocked it in, turned it into a 1-car garage. We want to maintain the exact slab, not change anything. And then the garage is not tall enough for an SUV to get in. It sits at really low rates, so we're trying to change that as well. Building exact same building, just be a smooth, hardy siding, using exact windows that are on the garage now to keep the structure of the house to make it look as much as like it did before.
Okay, so really the only change is a higher roof line, slightly higher to accommodate a larger
The roof
vehicle.
line would be a change. The slope of the roof would not be changed, it'd be the same. And then the material on the outside would change because you can't get the material anymore. And a lot of the material's rotted out.
Mr. Stroud, do you have any plans to have water in that garage or any kind of facility, bathroom or anything
There's
like
no,
that?
no facility, no water.
Strictly a
anything like that,
garage.
Just electricity is all.
Thank you.
And you're going to HPC on the 8th?
Correct. We had an architect draw the plans for it to get approved and everything to make sure it was meet code.
Any other questions for the petitioner? No? Okay, thank you. As Mr. Bowen said, there was no public comment received prior to the meeting, and I do not show anyone signed up to speak either for or against. Is there anyone in the audience who at this point would like to come forward to speak either for or against? Okay, being no one, we're going to close public discussion and go to board comments.
I don't have a comment. He's building on the same slab, pretty much same structure.
I agree. I feel like he's improving. I'm sure everybody around wants to see that be improved, and he's basically building back and just improving.
Yeah, like many of these we've seen in the historic districts and downtown in general. It was built in the 30s, decades before any zoning existed. Therefore, they're not making any change other than taking a rotting, falling down structure, replacing it as close as they can. They will be going before HBC to get that approval on the 8th. So based on that, their hardship is when it was built and the zoning that did not exist, which they could not meet today. So I'm in favor of granting the hardship.
I'm in favor as well.
I'm in favor of granting the or granting the replacement of this garage. Too many times, though, in historic areas, we have seen where this garage can turn into student housing, slip in a little bathroom, slip in a little water, you know. That's why I asked the question I did. But as long as it continues to be a garage with a taller for SUVs, which I completely understand, I am in favor of this.
Okay, if there's no further comment by the board, we're going to move to a vote and a reading of the petition. ZBA-06-23, Stephen Stroud petitions for a variance from the residential setback regulations to allow the construction of an accessory structure on a property located at 35 University Circle, zoned R3H, Council District 4. Voting with Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
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 Petition passed. Mr. Gilliam is going to leave the room for this discussion of the petition and vote, and Mr. Eatman will vote in his place.
All right, next case is ZBA 723, Southeastern Investment Group petitions for a special exception to allow for outdoor amusement. This is at property located south of 600 Harperley Drive, Zone BH, Council District 5. So here we have the location of the property as well as an aerial view of the property. So this is the current zoning, our current zoning map. They did recently receive Planning Commission approval to rezone to BH. So that section that you see that's in question will be zone BH. So again, here's a drone footage of the location. So the applicable regulations for miniature golf and outdoor amusement, it's all discretionary for the board. The board can include and shall be satisfied by the petitioner that the amusement will be wholesome. Also looking that the proposed facility will be appropriately landscaped. This request is for a special exception for that outdoor amusement. Like I mentioned previously, this was recommended to be rezoned by the Planning and Zoning Commission from BGO to BH. Council will actually vote on this rezoning tomorrow, February 28th. So if it is approved, staff recommends that it be contingent upon the approval of the rezoning. And we did not receive any public comment for this application. The petitioner is here to speak in person.
And so it is correct that the current use is not allowed without a special exception for any zoning in the city.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Members of the board, I'm Jimmy Duncan with Duncan Coker Associates here tonight representing Southeastern Investments Group. I don't have anything to add to what Mr. Bowen said.
Okay, so what's a potential timeline? I know it's got to go rezoning that you're aware of the project.
So council tomorrow night to finalize the rezoning, and then from what I understand, move quickly into design to get to a summer construction season.
Okay, so they're anticipating a fall ground break,
And
perhaps?
opening in the fall, potentially, yes, sir.
Any questions for Mr. Duncan? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
According to staff, there was no one who had submitted any comments earlier prior to the meeting. There's no one signed up. Is there anyone here in attendance who'd like to speak either for or against the petition? Okay, no one is present would like to speak, so we will close public comment and move to board discussion.
So with it, the rezoning being contingent for tomorrow, I see that being no problem. It's providing entertainment for the area. I think it's much needed. It's not in a neighborhood. It's not surrounded by, go back to that picture for me, if you'll go back. Yeah, so, in looking at it, it seems like that's gonna be something good in that area that's gonna improve it, so I see a need, and I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, to echo my fellow board members' comments, this screams development. I believe the land owner has been patient and waited for the right opportunity. Great visibility from the highway. The rezoning makes sense. I think based on the entertainment value, proximity to the UA, high traffic count, all those things, it'll be successful here. And I don't see this being harmful to any residents, either apartments to the east or the closest single-family home neighborhood to the south. So I think it's a good fit and will be a credit for the city and a good revenue opportunity for the constituents based on the tax revenue.
I agree, I'm in favor.
I'm also in favor. I think it's a very appropriate place. I think it's going to do well.
I'm also in favor. I think it's great development for the community. I think, you know, it definitely adds value to that part of town, so I'm in favor.
Okay, if there are no other comments, we'll go to a reading of the petition and a vote. ZBA-07-23 Southeastern Investment Group LLC petitions for a special exception to allow outdoor amusement on the property located south of 600 Harper Lee Drive, Zone BH, Council District 5. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
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 Comment, staff, did we need to put in contingent on rezoning? I missed that. We do? Do I need to read the, okay. All right, we're going to vote again, and I'm adding that condition. Let's see. ZBA-07-23 Southeastern Investment Group LLC petitions for a special exception to allow outdoor amusement on the property located south of 600 Harper Lee Drive, Zone BH, Council District 5, with the condition that the City of Tuscaloosa's council approves the rezoning to BH. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
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 The petition is approved.
Next case is ZBA 823, Park Supply Company petitions for a special exception for a building supply retail sales store. This is at 1125 26th Avenue East. It's currently Zone BN in Council District 5. So again, here we have the location of the property, including the zoning. Here we have a good aerial view of the property. These are some of the images of the subject property. This is the old Leland Lanes. Here are just a couple of images surrounding the property. So the applicable regulations for building supply retail sales store in BN and BH districts, there must be a storage, shall be screened, view from the wall, or view from the right-of-way by a wall, solid fence, or hedge. It's not less than 6 feet. This is for the outside storage of any materials. So the petitioner is requesting a special exception to operate a building supply and lumber sales store. The petitioner states that the outside storage of building supplies will be located in a screened area. We have a site plan that shows that. They also said that this will be compliant with the current zoning requirements. Screening will conceal the supplies from a public view and also be made of a privacy fence, wall, or hedge that's not less than 6 feet tall. So again, here we have that site plan that shows the proposed screening. All you see that's outlined in that bold red will be the screening. So you've got it, this area here, and also this area to the south. We did receive 2 comments in opposition of this petition, and we do have the petitioners here to speak in person.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Richard Henry, 1901 8th Avenue. Staff pretty well covered it. I will mention one comment is there's no intention of removing any of the vegetation, especially to the east of the site where that buffer is to the neighborhood. That's just kind of where the fence line was drawn, but there's no clearing plan. They're building a high-end showroom predominantly for plumbing. It's all plumbing supplies. It's not lumber and things of that nature. It's plumbing supply. So mostly it'll be pipe laid down on the ground. I think the tallest thing is probably a 6-foot bathtub with a, fiberglass tub unit. Again, the terrain here is dropping down to that bottom right corner. So really when stuff's down there, you won't even be able to see most of any of this stuff. And it will be a fence with the screening material on it is what's proposed. Glad to answer any questions.
Screening be, you said material, would it be like a fabric
That's my understanding.
Okay. And I had heard it was a unique building. It was a bowling alley, so an adaptive reuse is a challenge, and it's sat vacant for a while. So
It has. It's like everything that seems to happen. We've been sitting here not quite 18 months, and then the phone started ringing in the last 2 weeks, and we had a couple other people start looking at it. But yeah, I guess we always thought we would get the entertainment item like is going on McFarland, the petition before us, but we really didn't have interest from that. Mostly everything was a commercial, bulk building type use, a lot of warehouse, a lot of storage. So this does have a retail sales tax component to it, which should be good for the area. Pretty low traffic, especially compared to the previous use. So hours of operation are normal business hours. So it should be a pretty good, quiet neighbor, especially even when you compare to previous uses. So.
any other questions for the petitioner?
I had one about the lighting. I know you're going to have the back, some kind of directional lighting back there. After driving back there, I don't see that it would interfere at all with the residents on the other side of that. I'd be curious to know about your screening, though. You're not quite sure what it's going to be.
And it's proposed at a chain link fence with the fabric screening.
Okay.
But it's not just chain link. It does have the fabric screening, and I think there'll be some landscaping elements, but I don't know the particulars on those.
But you will have lighting in the
Yes,
back?
ma'am, there will be site lighting similar to what's there now.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think it would be any more, intrusive than what's there now. There's a lot of pole-mounted lights all over the site now.
Now, are deliveries, to your knowledge, contained to business hours?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, no questions. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Okay, it looks like we've got one person signed up, Mr. Kyle Patterson. No comment, okay. That That's all we had signed up. Is there anyone else present at this time who'd like to come forward and speak, either for or against? If you could, sir, come to the podium, please, and just give your name and address.
Sir Connor Edwards, 2722 Claybrook Drive, which will be the first left turn. And I'm the house that's gonna be the very bottom right corner. I'll be the first house on Claybrook Drive. And I'm concerned about light pollution. You know, when you go by these convenience stores, you see the lights pointed out. I was just wondering if they're gonna have that type of light, you know, where light, you know, I work for that railroad, so I'm not worried about noise. I guess, he said he's gonna leave the clearing, but I'm mainly worried about light. I'm making sure he had lighting pointing back towards my neighborhood, my house and my neighbor's house.
And that was your concern?
That's my concern,
Okay.
light pollution.
Well, I'm going to ask the petitioner, when you get seated, to come up, and he can answer that.
Yeah, again, I don't think the lighting would be any worse than what is currently there now. Again, it's going to be directed at the product in the yard, not to the neighbors. It's intended to just light up the things they don't want stolen. They don't want to light up anything around them or cause any light pollution on anybody else.
Well, if they put up perimeter lighting, and if they're in that southeast corner, which is the concern for the neighboring landowner, is that something they can shield? A lot of options on shielding, especially if it's pointed back into the interior. Is that what?
Yes, I mean, if a light in the southwest corner would be directed in the, I guess,
Or southeast.
Southeast
Yeah.
would be pointed northwest,
Right.
you know, away from that, so it would be behind it. So yes, I mean, they'd look at shielding options or things of that nature, but I think it's gonna be the product that's there now is very similar to what the power company puts out for you. It is privately owned currently, but it would be a similar to that. It would not be a downlight, it would be like a flood going forward, so it would broadcast away from the neighborhood and not wash the area straight and around behind it as well. So it should be away from them. Again, the vegetation's not gonna be removed, the current screening's not gonna be removed, and there would be no reason to cast light in that direction. So I don't think it would harm him in that manner.
Any other questions for Mr. Henry?
All right, thank y'all.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else at this time who'd like to come forward and speak? No? Okay, at that point, we're going to close public discussion and move to board comments.
Sounds like he's got everything addressed from the lighting, and they're not clearing the vegetation, which goes at the neighborhood, so I don't foresee any issues.
I don't see any issues. He's answered the questions that were concerned. I think it's a good use of the property, and I see not much else can really go there. And it's been empty for 18 months, so I'm glad to hear that something's coming in it.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow board members. Looks to be a good fit. The city, it's a relocation within the city, is my understanding, and so the city doesn't lose, fortunately, the sales tax revenue and the jobs, so that's a plus. As the petitioner stated, this property was going to be a challenge to use in another easy format to get something that's productive and is a good fit. And just one comment, the hours, I looked them up. It's Monday through Friday, 7 to 4:30, and 4 hours on a Saturday. So to get a commercial tenant near residential that is open only during the week and doesn't have a negative evening impact is a plus. So based on that, I'm in favor of granting the special exception.
I agree with my other board members. I'm in favor.
I'm in favor for all the reasons stated.
Okay, no other discussion. We'll move to a reading of the petition and a vote. ZBA-08-23 Park Supply Company LLC petitions for a special exception to allow building supply retail sales store on the property located at 1125 26th Avenue East, Zone BN, Council District 5, voting with Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
the petition passed.
Can we let them know the people that are standing can come and have a seat? For everyone that's standing, there are some seats available up front if you'd like to come and have a seat.
Next case is ZBA 1023, Kim Roberts petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property in a historic district. This is at 1017 Myrtlewood Drive, zoned R3H, Council District 4. So here we have the location of the property, as well as an aerial view. Here we have an active map of other short-term rentals in the general area. Here we have a view of the property from the street. This is a driveway where cars will park, and then they also have this rear section where cars will park as well. Here we have the applicable regulations. This is a new short-term rental request for 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. No violations found or complaints received. Like I mentioned, there was additional parking that's accessed off of Convent Street. So this request is for 4 vehicles and 8 adults. If approved, staff does recommend the 4 vehicles and 8 adults. We did receive at least one comment in opposition to this application. We do have the petitioner here to speak in person.
Can you go back to the street view from the rear? Okay, there.
Yes.
So that, those 2 spots that are gravelled are the rear access off of Convent.
That's correct.
And then the front was 2 in a single lane drive? Yeah, so we'd have, okay.
Can you go to the aerial, please?
Sure.
So the rear you showed was where that tree canopy is? Right there.
Right in that area.
And that's the petitioner's existing garage
That's correct.
next to it, okay.
And they have a fence that's shown, and they did go to HPC to receive approval for the 2 parking spaces here, and they essentially moved that fence line up, kept access to the garage there.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you. Ms. Roberts?
My name is Kim Roberts. This is a 4-bedroom house, 4-bedroom and 2-bath home. And they have 4 parking spots in the front. It's a single lane drive, but then it flares out into a parking area in front of the garage.
Okay, is this home currently occupied?
It is not,
Okay, so it's.
not full-time. It's
Okay, so the owner sporadically uses this?
correct.
Okay,
They have, it's a brother and a sister that own it, and they have children at the university.
okay. But no intentions to do any other type other than private use of the house? If a short-term rental's approved, they would be the only, and off times
Correct.
there? Okay. And,
We
No
have
other-
another property just down the street that's in our program.
that they own as well?
No, they do not.
Okay.
It's a different owner
Okay.
You did say there was another of your property down the street?
that we manage, yes. That one that you see marked almost at the cul-de-sac.
On the bottom, okay, south of that house,
Mhm.
okay. Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Roberts?
On your other rental, the one that, how long has that been? Did it come in with the original short-term rentals 3 years ago?
It's been in our program long before we had any regulations on it, so it's been there a long time.
Have you ever had any complaints? Or
We have not, yeah. Got wonderful neighbors around there. They have our number and.
no problem with parking?
No.
Because that is such a narrow street.
Yeah, and that one doesn't have an alley. The alley doesn't come all the way down, but it has a garage, so.
Yeah,
it's,
I know, but still, sometimes people, even though they might have a space on a driveway, they choose to park conveniently for them.
Not on that street. I don't even think the residents want to park on that street much because it's so tight and there's just very few spots that aren't yellow curved. And all of our properties, they receive strict rules that they have to sign agreeing that they're not going to be on the streets. And so we just don't, we have cameras, we just don't have issues with compliance about that.
Good, thank you.
No other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, as staff stated earlier, we had one letter of opposition to this petition. We do not have anyone signed up this point. Does anyone in the audience would like to come forward, speak either for or against? No, so we will close public comment and move to board discussion.
Being that they have property down the street that's already in the program, and ample parking, I don't see an issue with the short-term rental.
I agree. This is a basic one of several short-term rentals in the area. Plenty of space, plenty of room, so I'm in agreement with 8 adults, 4 vehicles, 30 nights, 1 year.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow board members. This house fortunately has ample parking. Just for anyone who doesn't know, in case this comes up, the single-lane drive in this case would have limited us to 2 cars if they didn't have the rear parking. And fortunately, those 2 there on the screen behind me suffice to add more and meets the bedroom. So based on that, I'm in favor of 8 adults, 4 vehicles, a total of 30 nights, and a probationary 1-year permitted term.
I agree as well with 8 adults, 4 vehicles, 30 nights for 1 year.
Also agree.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, we'll move to a reading of the petition and a vote. ZBA 10-23, Bama B&B, Kim Roberts petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property in a historic district located at 1017 Myrtlewood Drive, zoned R3H, Council District 4, with the following conditions: a maximum of 8 adults, a maximum of 4 vehicles parked off-street, a total of 30 nights in the 1-year probationary period. With additional conditions, accessory structures cannot be occupied by anyone at any time, and a City of Tuscaloosa business license must be obtained. Voting with Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
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 Petition passed.
Next case is ZBA 1123, Kim Roberts petitions for a special exception for a short-term rental at 1 Forest Drive. This is zoned R1 in Council District 5. So here we have the zoning and location of that property, as well as a good aerial view of the property. This is the view of the house from the street. You notice there's a second structure in the back. We're just focused on that front structure. Here we have the applicable regulations. This is a new short-term rental. The house is 6 bedroom, 4 bathroom. The owners are currently working on interior renovations. They expect to complete those in the next few weeks. The driveway that we see here, you can see that it's gravel. That has been asked to be removed, and they are going back with grass. So the request is for 6 vehicles, 10 adults, and 45 nights. If approved, staff recommends 4 vehicles and 8 adults. We did receive at least 5 comments in opposition to this case, including from Counselor Kip Tyner. We do have the petitioner here to speak in person.
Can you go back to the aerial, please?
Sure.
So the structure in the rear, the detached structure, that was existing?
That was existing. That's, to our knowledge, a completely separate structure, a separate house.
Okay.
It's an occupied house?
It is.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Ms. Roberts?
My name is Kim Roberts, and as he stated, the property is undergoing renovations. He actually owns both of those houses, and his mother-in-law lives in the house at the back. And it's a separate, it has its own address and everything, but they do share a common driveway, but there's plenty of parking there. They have 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms on the main floor. They're renovating, they have a walkout basement, and that's what they're renovating right now into having a full laundry room and 2 bedrooms and 1 bath downstairs.
Okay, is there They have a building permit?
They do.
They're working under a building
They have
permit?
a full building permit on this one.
But it's still in progress, so you
Right,
have
they're
not,
a few weeks away from finishing.
so no final inspection, no
Not
CO yet? Okay. And then, tell me a little more so we're clear. It's one lot. You've got two structures on the one lot.
Right. Well, I don't know how the lots are divided up. I don't know about that, but I just know that they own both of those houses, and the other one is completely independent, has its own address.
Okay, so the structure in the rear at the back of the driveway is the mother-in-law suite?
Correct.
That is
And it's a
not,
full house. I mean, I don't know how many
but it's
bedrooms
not
there are.
part of this
It is not.
request
It
at
will
all?
not be occupied. It's full-time occupied by the mother-in-law.
Okay, I've got a question for staff. Ms. Hayes, it's my understanding this is a single lot, owned lot, correct? It's not subdivided?
Correct.
And you've got two houses on there that are separate.
So essentially with this, the zoning officer did determine that the accessory, what we would consider nowadays an accessory structure is legal nonconforming. It has been occupied this entire time, and so he's allowed them to continue to occupy it.
Okay, totally separate, parking, everything else under consideration, okay? Ms. Roberts, similar to your first case, outside of as much ambiguity that was present there, it seemed to be, that we want to get cleared up, it still falls, it's under an active permit that has not been completed and no CO granted. So based on that, using the same reasoning, I'm in favor of continuing. You said it was relatively a short period of time?
Yes.
Um,
He said he'll be done in just a few more weeks.
Well, if that would allow you to be done by the next meeting, I'm going to suggest to the board that we
I know in the
continue.
past, we've done it based where like a contingency where it just can't be occupied until those things are met and we don't have to come back before you. You know, we've done that before on some of our other properties.
Well, excuse me a second. The petitioner just stated we have done that in the past. I would feel more comfortable, may have, and it may be an inconvenience, but moving forward, you do enough of this, you know things you haven't been allowed to do in the past with parking that were going to happen. Until it happens, it doesn't mean anything. Things could change for your property owner. They don't follow through with all of it. I don't want to go down that road, to be honest with you.
They're fine.
So we're going to do that. And so we'll know what we're voting on legitimately, that the city signed off on.
Okay.
Okay? Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, we've got two individuals signed up to speak. Miss Anna Schuler, or, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with reading the script.
It's Anna Schuber,
Schuber.
18 Forest Drive. I live right across the street from this place. I've been there for 27 years. The house in the back is not a house. It is actually an apartment. There is only one way in there, so the driveway goes back. It is not a very large spot for the person in the back to be parking. They have extended it out, taking out all the bushes and everything else. One of my biggest concerns is the fact that there is a stop sign right there in front of the driveway. It is a stop sign for 7th Street. Unfortunately, the stop sign is on the wrong side of the street. No one ever stops, including police officers who come through there. It is dangerous. I have seen almost accidents as people coming out of that driveway have to deal with the traffic that's coming from Crescent Ridge onto Forest Drive. They fly through there at all times of day and night. It is a dangerous place for children. We have some children living 2 or 3 doors down. I also want to point out that this house is less than a block away from the very first house we talked about up on University. So added traffic, added noise. The 27 years I've been there, it has been occupied by families that have been quiet and respecting. The house next door to it, and number 2, has been a meth house for 2 or 3 years. It now has a nice family living there. We're glad for that. We would like to have that in number 1. My concern is noise. My concern is traffic, my concern is safety. Those are my things.
Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Schubert? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And we also had Mr. Ray Ballou signed up. I believe he left. I think there was some confusion on the signed-up sheets earlier, but he's not, no longer with us this evening. Okay, that's all we had signed up. Is there anyone else present in the audience who wants to speak either for or against? So this gentleman's coming first, ma'am. He was already up. Thank you. If you could just state your name and address.
Cedric Avery, I live at 3424 7th Street East.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you on your name.
My name is Cedric Avery, and I live at 3424 7th Street East, couple houses down. First of all, I have a teenager. You know, on our street, it's quiet. We have no traffic too much. We don't even have beer cans on our streets. With this house they coming in with, I think gonna be too noisy. I think we're gonna begin to see things that we don't see now. You know, just the other day, me and my wife were watching the news in Birmingham on the same kind of house. 3 students got shot. We don't want that on our street. Been there 18 years. We don't want it. We don't want the noise. We love our neighbor. I've been, this lady here is so wonderful. That's one of my neighbors. We don't want it on our streets. It's just like trying to put a church of chicken in Woodland Forest. They don't want it. We don't want it. We don't want the noise. We want peace. We love it like that. We have children that walk that street. We don't know who coming into them houses. We don't want it. We want to keep it like it is, peaceful and nice. We love it like that. And I love my neighbors. We don't want it. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you. Okay, ma'am, in the front row. If you would, just please state your name and address.
My name is Delane Smith. Oops, sorry. I live at 3320 8th Street East, and we also have property on Forest Drive, which is 13 Forest Drive. And I am totally opposed to this being rezoned. I have been there for 30 years.
Let me interrupt you. It's not a rezoning. It's asking for a special exception.
Okay, special
The
exception.
zoning is not something only the city council can do that by vote. So nothing's changing on that. This is, a rezoning is permitted and goes with the land if there was a sale. What we're granting, if it is granted, is solely a special exception that's timed solely for that petitioner. So just different legally than a rezoning.
Gotcha. But totally against this. I have been there for 30 years, and we do have a very quiet neighborhood, which is considered Austin subdivision. And, you know, we've dealt with issues in the past with the meth house next door to this one that is up for discussion. And I just have a question for Ms. Roberts. Is at any time could either one of these houses be more than the adults, like another special exemption? Could more cars, because I thought that at sometimes with her B&B business that people are granted more vehicles and more adults with special exemptions?
Under what she's asking for is a special exception to allow a short-term rental. Under the guidelines, we look at some different criteria, but fundamentally, how many cars can be parked that we're not having to stack more than 2 to move that third one? Because typically, if you have to move more than 1 car off-street, and all parking is off-street, it's nothing, even if it's legal on-street, in this use, you cannot park on the street forward. But so to answer that, can things change in the dynamics? Not without coming to this board. And I don't know of any instance that I can recall, and I've been doing this since the inception of having short-term rentals on this board, that we have increased cars that I'm aware of. Maybe one time, but it wasn't an issue about parking. So for the most part, no. But what will happen, any petitioner will come back after that first probationary year, same hearing type structure, and we review if there are issues. If they choose to, then they can be looked at to go up to 3 years on time and up to 45 nights in a year if there were no issues. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Okay, all right, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, come on forward, ma'am. Well, how are
Well,
you?
I am Vonda Bailey. I'm at 3424 7th Street East, and you've heard that address before, but I am reading for my neighbor, Ms. Pamela Bedingfield. She lives at 3431 7th Street East, Tuscaloosa. In regards to the bed and breakfast in our neighborhood, I am unable to attend this planning meeting in person due to
Ma'am, let me interrupt you just so everyone's clear for you in the audience. It's not a bed and breakfast. That's a whole different legal classification and a different product.
Short-term.
It's just a short-term rental.
Short-term rental. And she's lived in the neighborhood for 20 years, and it's been a nice quiet as well as getting to know your neighbors. She do not wish to have a short-term rental in the neighborhood. Will increase traffic significantly in the small residential area and will cause dangerous situations for many families who walk and bike in our neighborhood. It will also result in continuous stream of strangers to our neighborhood, which as an elderly person greatly concerns me and my family. I have also heard from others that have had similar short-term rentals added to their neighborhoods that they saw substantial increases in crime, which is especially concerning to me. Further, we pay too much property tax to have to endure this added nuisance and stress. For these reasons, I strongly disagree with the short-term rental property in our neighborhood. And that's from Mrs. Bedingfield at 3431 7th Street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward and speak? Okay, Ms. Roberts, if you would, please come back to the podium. And I don't know if I answered fully for the petitioner who had a question for you. Ma'am, did I miss something? Okay, actually, I'm sorry. Because it's recorded, you're going to need to come up to the mic, and if you could just ask the question.
Do I need to state my name again?
Could you stand in front of the mic? Your name, please, again.
Delane Smith, 3320 8th Street East, Tuscaloosa.
Okay.
At any time, is there any way that you would give permission for more parking or more adults at the houses?
No, because that's a.
Okay,
set by the
I'm sorry, this is a little confusing. We can't have the conversation there. Is that your question? Did you have anything else? Okay, thank you. If you'll sit down and we'll let Ms. Roberts.
We would not. If we were to request that, we would have to do it with permission through the ZBA to increase that. And as he stated, that when you renew, you're just going with the same thing and just increasing number of nights. So we've done this for 15 years, and we've never had problems with noise or issues. There's no complaints on file with the city with any of our properties. We have over 90 properties that we manage, and we're very strict with our guests and with our owners that own these properties on what our expectations are. So I completely understand concerns, but they're unfounded with any of the properties we manage. So.
Okay, I think that answered that. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else? Final call. Okay, no one else would like to speak. I'd like to close public comment at this point and go to board discussion. Mr. Gilliam?
I think, being that they haven't got their CO, for your recommendation, I think this needs to be tabled and discussed to make sure they follow through with what their building permit and they get all their final inspections and their CO.
And I agree. I'd like to see that be known that that's kind of our practice, that you need to have everything completed. So when we approve something, we're approving what it's going to be is and not what it's going to be. Because if you don't complete it or you don't continue it, you have the okay to do more people than you have space. So I like to see projects that are finalized.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow board members. It'll be next month. I know people came out based on this. Things happen in public hearings, but out of fairness, everyone was able to speak this evening. So we're going to continue it for 1 month. If the petitioner chooses to do that and follow through, and this will be heard then in 1 month.
I agree. I'm comfortable with continuing.
I first would like to ask city staff, can that stop sign be addressed by city, please?
Yeah, we'll reach out to the right department to check on that.
Okay, thank you. I can tell you right off the bat, I am not comfortable with 10 adults, whether it's next month or tonight. I do think it should be continued because until everything is completely done, I am not in favor of doing anything but continuing.
Okay, if there are no other comments, we're going to move to a reading of the petition and a vote. ZBA-11-23, Bama B&B, Kim Roberts petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 1 Forest Drive, zoned R1, District 5, voting to continue for 1 month with Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
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 Yes to continue.
Yes.
Okay, the petition will be continued for 1 month.
Next case is ZBA 1223, Javier Ruiz petitions for a special exception to allow for the short-term rental of a property at 2305 Prince Avenue. This property is on R2 in Council District 7. So here we have the location of the property as well as an aerial view. Here we have a map that shows at least one other short-term rental in the general area. This is a view of the house from the street. Here we have the applicable regulations. So this is also a new short-term rental request. The house is 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. There were no violations found or complaints received. The request is for 4 adults and 2 vehicles. If approved, staff does recommend the 4 adults and 2 vehicles. We did receive several comments in opposition to this application, and we do have the petitioner here to speak in person.
Are there any questions? No. No? Okay, thank you. Mr. Ruiz?
Hi, my name is Jimmy Warner. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Ruiz, who is currently in Kansas right now.
Do we have a designated? Okay. Just had to be sure we have the correct paperwork. Go ahead.
All right. My name is Jimmy Warner. Like I said, I'm a resident here in Tuscaloosa. I have known Mr. Ruiz for 4.5 years.
Can you state your address, please? State your address, please.
My address is 13778 Winslow Avenue in Northport.
Thank you. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm here on his behalf to provide any information that is asked and go forward with this. I do want to note, I see right up here where it says 4 adults. I believe it was supposed to be asking for 6 adults. It's a 3-bedroom place.
Yeah, yes, sir, but based on the driveway, and if we could go back to a street view. It's a single width drive, and we don't allow stacking of more than 2 vehicles. So, and that doesn't, even if you have more bedrooms, all that we're going to allow, because what tends to happen is if you have to move 2 cars to get one, oftentimes they end up out on the street. And even though it may be legal street parking for everyone else, under the short term, if a short-term rental license is granted, there is no, it becomes illegal under the ordinance, in essence, to park on the street. So the maximum is going to be 4 adults and 2 vehicles.
And we usually say 2 people in 1 car, and that's how we kind of do them.
Now, with the 4 adults, does that include that they can't have children?
Yeah, children are allowed, but it's a head count of 4 adults.
I have a question. You said the property owner is out of the state?
Yes, ma'am.
So, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. He currently lived here. He and his wife are both military, and they were stationed here for a while, for 3 years, while his wife was assigned to work at the University of Alabama ROTC program. Jay Ruiz himself, he is retired from the Army, and after his wife got her next promotion, she is reassigned to Kansas. at a military school there. Their purpose of purchasing this property is that they wish to move back to Tuscaloosa after she completes her 3 years in Kansas, and she wants to retire, and they wish to retire here. So this was the reason they bought this property here. They originally bought property in Texas, which they wanted to develop there with some camping sites and stuff like that, but due to water shortages and extreme costs from a well that could be dug, they decided to sell that property and invest here in a home that they want to retire to.
Will you be managing it, or do they have someone that will be on call?
I am the person who is on call here. He manages with all the bookings and stuff like, or he will manage all the bookings and things like that. But if there are any kind of emergency needs or anything, I will be here for those.
And you said you live in Northport, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now, I do currently work with the City of Tuscaloosa Police Department, so I'm in Tuscaloosa all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have experience managing short-term rentals or any rental property?
I do not have any experience myself, other than growing up. My family were very good friends with people who, friends who owned a lot of rental properties around Tuscaloosa and a few in Northport. But when I say when managing things like that, it was mainly just me going in and doing repairs and things like that.
So as a primary point of contact, you're available 24/7 to accept a call to resolve whatever the issue is.
Yes, sir.
If that came up. And you mentioned they are in Kansas now. Is anyone else using the house or living in it part-time?
They do have a son here, Michael, who is attending the University of Alabama, so he has been staying in there some until everything is hopefully approved. But he has not taken up residency inside that.
Okay. If this is approved, just so you know, it's not allowed to stay in the home.
Right.
Even a separate room. If you have renters, it changes the dynamics of how this is classified.
Correct.
Okay. What about rules and regulations?
He has very strict rules that go along with Airbnb. They already set up their own rules, but he has a strict rule with no parties, quiet hours from 9 p.m. to 9 p.m. to 8 a.m. Maximum occupancies of 4 adults, 6 total. With even if it's just children, he wants no more than 6 there at all times. The new strict Airbnb background check that they do now. He goes solely by that. He doesn't just take on anyone that just wants to rent the place out. He makes them go through that background check, and he checks their rating himself. Driveway maximum car limit that is set in place. That's the way he wants it to be. He has a 1 pet verification requirement, minus service animals that are meet ADA guidelines, and 0 drug policy, period. He has cameras that set up outside of all the resident entry doors where he can monitor backyard, front yard, driveway, and anytime that he will have any kind of issue, he lets me know, and I actually can monitor those cameras as well. So.
Okay. Any other questions? The petitioner? No? Okay. Anything else for us? Or are you good?
Sir?
Is there anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I do not see anyone currently signed up to speak, either for or against. Would anyone else like to come forward at this time to speak? No. We're going to move to board discussion and closing public comment.
Being that they're just asking for 4 adults and 2 vehicles, I'm in agreement with this short-term rental.
I'm in agreement as well. I feel like I really appreciate him going through the rules and regulations that Mr. Reyes was putting in place. I think it shows the level of due diligence that short-term renters take into consideration. I think sometimes people believe they don't care about the home or the community, and I think it shows with those rules and regulations and background checks and wanting to limit the number of people. So I really appreciate you sharing that. I'm in favor of 4 adults, 2 vehicles, 30 nights, 1 year probation.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow board members. Same conditions. I'm satisfied with the petitioner's representative and, what they have put in place in their plan moving forward.
I'm in favor as well.
I'm also in favor. Normally, when the owner is out of the state, it can be a problem, but it sounds like he's got it covered.
Okay. If there are no other discussion, we'll move to a reading of the petition and a vote. ZBA -12-23, Javier Ruiz petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 2305 Prince Avenue, zoned R2, Council District 7, with the following conditions. A maximum of 4 adults, a maximum of 2 vehicles parked off-street, a maximum of 30 nights in a 1-year probationary period. With the additional conditions, no accessory structures cannot be occupied by anyone at any time in a city of Tuscaloosa. Business license must be obtained prior to operation. Voting with Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
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 The petition passed. Okay, Mr. Bowen, at this time, Ms. Ford is going to have to leave the meeting, and Mr. Eatman will take over voting in her place.
All right. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to ZBA 1323. Christopher Hunter Jacobs Jr. petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property at 2306 Brandon Parkway. This property is zoned R1 in Council District 3. So here we have the location of that property, as well as an aerial view. Here we have a view of the property from the street, and here's a closer-up image of that driveway and parking area. Here we have listed the applicable regulations. So this is also a new short-term rental request. The house is a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom. Only 3 bedrooms will be rented out. There were no violations found or complaints received. The request is for 3 to 4 vehicles or 6 to 8 adults. If approved, staff does recommend the 3 vehicles and 6 adults. We did receive several public comment in opposition to this application. We do have the petitioner here to speak in person.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
You said there are only 3 available. Where's the other bedroom?
Correct. I believe they're going to lock off one of the bedrooms and only rent out 3 of those 4 bedrooms.
Gotcha.
All right, thank you. Okay, if we could have Mr. Hunter Jacobs come forward, please, or Christopher Hunter Jacobs.
Hey, I'm Hunter Jacobs, and I live at 2306 Brandon Parkway, and we're requesting approval for a special exception for short-term rental.
Okay, tell me a little bit about your background as far as relating to rentals, managing rentals, short-term rentals specifically. Have you done that before?
Well, my father and a guy that I work with have several rental properties, so I have been around it for at least the last 10 years. But as far as short-term rental, I don't have any experience. With long-term rental, I do.
Okay. Are you, where do you plan on going and residing while if it's passed and it's a short-term rental, where will you be?
So my parents do live in Tuscaloosa, as well as my wife's parents, and they have a couple of extra bedrooms in each house. And if for some odd reason they don't want us to come, her parents have a house on the river, which is about 30 minutes south of town.
Okay. Will you serve as that emergency contact?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you prepared rules and regulations?
Yes, sir, we have, and they'll be posted at the house.
Okay. And you did say you live full-time now in the home. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the petitioner?
Do you have anything in place for background? How do you plan on running? I mean, are you going to do background checks? Are you going to post it on websites? I mean, how are you going to advertise it?
So it'll be advertised on Airbnb only, and so we will be able to do background checks as well as like kind of filtering out like what type of people we rent to is like age-wise. So we don't want to rent to like college-age students. We just want to be geared more toward like families of students coming to football games, other like families that just want to come to the football games for the weekend.
What about the room you're not renting? Explain that.
Okay, so in our house, we have 4 bedrooms total. We have the master downstairs and 3 bedrooms upstairs. We have a 9-month-old daughter, so up the stairs, the middle room is her nursery, which we plan on locking. So the bedroom on the left and right both have queen-size beds, so those bedrooms will be available, and 1 bathroom upstairs, and then the master downstairs.
Okay, so the baby's room will be off limits and taken out of the inventory.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Go ahead. I do have one question for city staff. Are there any other short-term rentals in this neighborhood?
Not any that have received ZBA approval or a license from the city.
Okay, any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you. Okay, we've got 3 individuals signed up to speak this evening. Ms. Cindy Warner. You could just state your name and address, please.
Sure. I'm Cindy Warner, and I live at 2311 Brandon Wood Road, and I can see the house from my front yard, even though it's on Brandon Parkway. My husband and I bought into Brandon Place just a year ago, and so we fixed up our home, and we're happy to be able to move into a family-friendly neighborhood. There are kids all over the neighborhood. The kids are walking down the street together, they're using skateboards, they're riding their bikes, they're rollerblading. It just happens all in Brandon Place because there are sidewalks there, but it's a very family-oriented neighborhood. We were really especially pleased for that. We moved from San Diego area, and I'm sure that you can know that there are lots of questions about Airbnb and all of that in San Diego. I mean, it became a big topic. So we moved from San Diego to Tuscaloosa, and we're happy to be here. So when we lived in the San Diego area, we were in a neighborhood with 4 streets. One of the neighbors ended up doing short-term rentals. And we had, let me see here. Okay, for 13 years, we lived through noise, rowdiness, late night, early morning guests arriving. You know, they weren't staying there, but they were coming to visit, kind of thing. We had trash, we had racing vehicles. I picked up vape things. I picked up all sorts of trash kind of stuff. I'm not saying that he's going to have this, that please understand. But I'm just saying from my point of view, this is what I lived with for 13 years. It was just not a nice scenario. Our neighbors were in constant communication about this happening and that happening, and it was not a good, it changed the area because of that. While I like all of our neighbors in Brandon Place, and I have no problem with Hunter, what I do have is the problem of where he's trying to do it. If he bought a property somewhere else and did it, I have do whatever he wants to, but I think it's going to change the community. Let me see. I talked about that. One request for, well, it was asked if there were other short-term rentals, and there are none. And I'm concerned if there is one, it's going to bring more and more and more, and it's really going to change the community. So I'm requesting that the special exception for 2306 Brandon Parkway to Christopher Hunter Jacobs be denied. And it's a great idea, but I think it's the wrong location.
You timed that exactly right. Thank you. It looks like a J. Lauderdale. Oh, okay. And that's all we have signed up. Staff did mention we were forwarded all the emails that came in that were in opposition and have read those. Sir, you can come.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Corey Ferris. I live at 2230 Brandon Parkway. It's directly adjacent to Hunter's property to the rear. Our back decks face one another. I'd like to point out a couple of things. One, he noted that there were several letters of opposition. One of those letters I penned myself and received 39 households rejecting this option, not signatures. There are more signatures than that on it, but 39 households out of 78 in the neighborhood occupied homes. That's 50% of the community has said, we don't want this. There would have been more. That was all the people I could have gotten in touch with in the given time. I like Hunter and Callie very much. They live right across the back deck. We speak back to deck, back deck to back deck. But my concern, first and foremost, is the safety of the kids. As it's been noted, there are numerous kids in the neighborhood, many of them under the age of 10, particularly on that cul-de-sac that's being proposed. There are half a dozen kids on that cul-de-sac under the age of 10. My wife and I commonly joke that Brandon Place is free-range parenting. We have the ability to turn our kids loose on Saturday morning, and they run the neighborhood. And it's old school. They get to, you look for the bikes, that's where the kids are. The moms have a group message where they message, hey, the kids are here, the kids are there, but they're all over the place. Furthermore, I don't want strangers looking over the fence at my children, my prepubescent children who are here in the audience tonight, watching them grow up on ball game weekends. People come to ball games to have parties. That being said, there's been a couple of people that have addressed a couple of my concerns tonight. Given restrictions of the renters, I'd like to point out that Airbnb and VRBO have spent millions trying to stop open invitation parties, trafficking use, drug use, shootings. No one ever applies for one of these intending that to happen. I've spoken with Hunter personally, and he said that if anything bad happens, he will stop it immediately. And that's very conscientious of him. However, I would say to that if it's something bad has happened, it's already happened. It's happened to one of our kids. It's happened to somebody in the neighborhood. Second, if he rezones, or excuse me, if he gets a special exemption, there'll be no ground for us to stand on to oppose future in our neighborhood. And I feel like that's the way it will go.
I'll let you finish so your time, then I want to
Okay.
respond.
I'll close with just saying that, again, over 50% of the neighborhood has said, we don't want this. Thank you very much.
And I did read, as all of us did, your email in particular. But just a comment back, you mentioned your fear if something happened and then down the road, what would be your recourse or anybody in your neighborhood? We hadn't referenced that tonight, but the first line of defense, the
Is
ones that...
stopping it here.
Well, that's one way to look at it. But when it's been granted, which we have 175 active permits in the city, citywide, I think every district's represented. Of those, the conscientious citizens that are here who are opposed to any ordinance or change, the route and method the city has put in place and in practice, along with enforcement staff, is to let us know. And a lot of people in the audience might say, well, that's not our responsibility. Well, it is for all of us that are citizens and live in the city of Tuscaloosa. We see something, we say something. And the way to affect a change forward under anything that exists legally or granted is to, number one, call if it's a police matter, you call the police, obviously. 911, but 311 tracks. That is a tracked call system through city staff gets, and they investigate. They go back and they can audit the records because they're tax records. When you're doing this legally, which is this case, they know. So they go back and track it to that date. This will have a 1 year in this case, or any first-time STR, if it's approved, they've got that 1 year. At that point, when it's reviewed to go any further, if the petitioner chooses to, we look at everything from a police complaint, or the city staff does, and pulls that. If there are no complaints, generally, most of those are approved, and generally, when there's opposition, first time in a neighborhood, what we've seen, when it's come before this body, oftentimes there could be 30 people against, and no one comes back, and we get no complaints. And that's kind of proof of concept. Again, your city council who's elected put this in place about 4.5, 5 years ago. It's been amended 3 times. And the first amendment, I believe, after year 1, year 2, it was only allowed in the tourist district, the overlay district in this area, downtown University area, and the lake.
All right, which this is not part of.
Sir?
Which this is not part of, if I understand correctly.
No, now it's allowed citywide. And the reason, my understanding, the city council made that pivot and it was brought back before them for a vote because citizens who lived outside of here, like your neighborhood, wanted the opportunity to do it citywide. And, they felt, hey, it's not fair just to let certain people have that opportunity. Council reviewed it, was amended, several other minor amendments, and one coming tomorrow for a vote with the council as well. So that was a long ramble, but a lot of people don't know intimately what happened, the process. And Ms. Warren, I believe, spoke earlier about some negative experiences in California, San Diego. I can't speak to those, number one. I don't know what their ordinance actually in holds. This ordinance, when you compare with other cities, some cities can go wide, Katie bar the door, it's 365, unchecked. Here, we've got a framework and structure the staff has put together, and part of that proof of concept, we look at the active permits that have been passed and approved and reapproved, and a lack of issues.
Sure.
Less than a handful of issues, and most of those are very, very minor. So, something, worth noting, but a car was parked on the street. So there are a lot of assurances in the ordinance when you look through it that actually are more limiting. You may have a party, or anyone may have a football party at a weekend. You could have, let me just finish. You could have 30 cars, you could have 100 cars, big party, legally parked on the street in front of everyone's home, and unchecked on how many people come in. You're all subject to the same noise ordinances and every other legal ordinance. But the short-term rental framework is more punitive or strict on what an individual doing that is allowed to do. So I just want everyone to know that. We hear this, I've heard it since the inception. So I'm just saying, and I thought the same way. I live north of the river in a one-entrance subdivision coming in. My opinion prior to this, the discussions we were brought into, being on this board, having to hear these, was, okay, I've got some concerns. My kids were teenagers then. By sitting here for almost every meeting, unless I've missed one, I've heard these same applications and heard all the comments on both sides. My opinion has changed greatly from not knowing, the fear of the unknown, and having the benefit of reading these reports and sitting here today. I've got 2 we looked up today. One's 150 feet behind me, and one's the closest to. There's more that are close, and about 350 feet away. I've actually spoken to, after they've come before us, I didn't know these people before, anecdotally spoken to these. What's your experience? They've had a great experience. It's the home they live in, kind of like this petitioner. The majority of people I come into contact with have that experience. They love their neighborhoods just like y'all do. I just wanted to say that.
And I absolutely agree that it is 99.9% of the time a pleasant experience. But when it goes wrong, it typically goes horribly wrong. And I will lay that at y'all's feet, as well as Hunter's. Furthermore, as far as someone who lives in the neighborhood throwing a party or having a big wild ball game, I can go knock on their door on Monday morning and say, hey, that's a little wild. Short-term renters have no social buy-in into the neighborhood where they are staying. So,
But Hunter has social buy-in, and so you call Hunter and you tell Hunter, your renters were loud, and you call 311. So that's the part about Hunter living in the neighborhood and being the homeowner. You can call him and say, hey, buddy, you had some people and they were rowdy, and you said, you see what I'm saying, you can hold his feet to the fire. Because a lot of times we've seen that there can be people who own the home and they don't even live there. So at least your person is owner occupied. I would say this, Hunter could rent that house out if he wanted to, long-term rental. He
Long-term.
wouldn't have to bring anything to us. He wouldn't have to say anything to you. He could
And
just
there are
rent it.
long-term renters in our
And,
neighborhood.
and I know a lot of people in property management, and long-term renters and the state law in Alabama to try to get someone gone who signed a lease is a whole lot more difficult, and you've got to look at them 365. And if anyone who's had a bad long-term renter experience in their neighborhood, that's bad news, because they could be a
I've
bad
dealt with
egg.
it myself.
So,
So I get
we say all that to say, this is very structured, and there are remedies if something goes awry.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Again, I will close with, if something goes awry, it's too late to stop.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you. Okay, that's everybody signed up, so anyone else can come forward, please. And just your name and address.
Caitlin Miller, 2308 Brandon Parkway, Tuscaloosa, Alabama 35406. I'm the house directly next door to Hunter's residence. And a nice change of pace, I'm here to say I support this. I think this is perfectly feasible. Everything that has come forth as a concern that people have provided, I think we've got adequate reasons why that'll be addressed, whether that be stratification based on the type of renters they allow in the short term, and then the buy-in that they have owners who occupy this space. Our children, I have a brand new 1-month-old son, and I feel perfectly safe with him being next door to renters because everybody else in the neighborhood is also a stranger. And when they have guests who come, when I have friends who come over, they're also strangers. And I don't see how that is quite different from a short-term rental. So this is me giving my support as somebody who has probably the most to lose in the neighborhood, as somebody who's literally our driveways touch, and our mailboxes are right next to each other. So giving that and saying, I support this, and I think this is perfectly adequate use of their personal property.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Would anyone else like to come forward and speak either for or against? Okay. With no one, we're going to close public comment and move to board discussion.
I understand that no other short-term rentals in this area, but being that the petitioner is local ties, I mean, I feel that staff's recommendation for approval.
I haven't been here as long as the chair, but I've heard a fair share of these, and the concerns are usually the same concerns that everybody has about their neighborhood, their children, the integrity of their neighborhood. And we, as a sitting here as a commission, I don't want anybody to think we don't feel that. I live in a neighborhood, and we have a short-term rental in the neighborhood. I was concerned about it when it first came, and I have children at that time, and so. You know, I do understand, but at this point, with it being owner-occupied, that's something that we can't make a rule that it has to be owner-occupied, but I like owner-occupied as short-term rentals, because to me, you're not gonna rent your personal home out to somebody and you know you have to come back to it. I don't think you're gonna have a rager at your house and then have to come back to that. So I think they will be particular about who they allow to rent the property. I think that this needs to be taken up with your city councilman and your issues and your concerns, because that's who makes the decision. They'll be making a decision tomorrow night about it. We tend to, if you haven't had a complaint, we tend to allow everybody the opportunity. Now, the second go-around, if you've had complaints and you have broken the rules, and I understand what you said, it's 99.9% of the time, but it's pretty much like 100% so far that we haven't had issues with the short-term rentals, anything that has happened to children or anything, people getting shot and so forth. So that's what we have to base our decision on. We do care about your children, and that sounds like a wonderful place to grow up, to have children be able to run through the street. I'm sure Hunter respects that, and so I'm in favor of it. But you use 311. You make sure you monitor it. You make sure the slightest little thing that you don't like, you call it in, Because that's how you stop short-term rental in your neighborhood, is to call it in and to make it known of what's going on.
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Coley on that. I don't know Mr. Jacobs, but I think appears to be conscientious based on some of you who are against. That's not the issue. And that's a good thing. It's good to see that because sometimes it's difficult, but you're all good neighbors. I'm familiar with your neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood, great place to raise kids. I feel confident that if anything goes awry, he will handle it. And if not, he will know from all of y'all, probably very, very quick. And that's a good thing. And hopefully it's a good thing. Again, the intent of the city was to start this because it was happening illegally. And when things happen illegally and they're not checked and there's no framework, we're really reacting then. We change it from being very restrictive. And again, the city's done a fabulous job over the years, and the council has amended it when needed to basically get something that works. It works for neighbors, and it works for those who are choosing to do this. And oh, by the way, it offers an alternative. We all have great home property values in this city because of one reason: UA down the street and UA football. This town would be in the shadow of that, in what we had to offer, livability, everything you can think of, if it wasn't for that. Why do you think someone would come to Central Alabama to pay what they pay to stay in an Airbnb? It's a great place, but that's what's not drawing people here. So we know that. So all the events around UA that are the driver, hotels have been built. There are not enough hotels, and they price people out. And that's a good sign of prosperity in the community, but it's kind of a modern phenomenon, and it's driven by destination and attraction. And I think that's something good for all of us. And the city, like I said, to commend the city's efforts on what they've done over time to make this a livable, protected offering in our city. And that I'm in favor of that with the right checks moving forward.
I agree with my previous board members. I'm in favor.
Like my other board members, so this is actually my first time voting on one of these, and I'm going to be honest, I'm on the fence about it, because I definitely hear the concerns. I definitely understand the concerns of the community. With it being, no other short-term rentals in the area, I know it can be scary, with it being the first one, and feel like it sets precedent. So, like I said, honestly, I'm on the fence about this one.
If there are no other comments, I'm going to move to a reading of the petition and then a vote. ZBA-13-23, Christopher Hunter Jacobs Jr. petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of property located at 2306 Brandon Parkway, zoned R1, Council District 3, subject to the following condition: a total of 6 adults, a total of 3 vehicles parked off-street, total of 30 nights in a 1 calendar year probationary period. Also subject to two more conditions: accessory structures cannot be occupied by anyone at any time, and a City of Tuscaloosa business license must be obtained prior to engaging in short-term rental. Voting with Mr. Gillian.
Yes.
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 No.
Okay, the petition passed. It takes 4 affirmative votes to pass any petition, so it did pass.
Next case is ZBA 1423, Haley Gilliland petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of property at 624 Hargrove Road, zoned R1 in Council District 2. So here we have the location of the property as well as the zoning. Here's a good aerial view of the property. This is an image that shows other short-term rentals, active short-term rentals in the general area. There's at least one in the area. Here's a view of the house. This is in the driveway. We have a couple images of the driveway. It kind of wraps around to a rear parking area. You can see that extension into this area here. There's a covered porch area. Here's a clearer image or a bigger image of that parking area. And the petitioner provided this parking example of where short-term rentals would park. So here we have those applicable regulations. This is also a new short-term rental. It's the house is 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom. There were no violations found or complaints received for this property. The request is for 6 vehicles and 12 adults. If approved, staff does recommend 5 vehicles and 10 adults. To my knowledge, I don't think we received any comment in opposition to this application, and the petitioner is here to speak in person.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you.
My name is Haley Gilliland, and I live at 624 Hargrove Road, and I'm applying for a short-term rental exception. I don't know.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about what your intentions with the property.
Yeah, so my intention is really just to rent it out the 30 days a year. I work for the athletic department here at the university, so for game days, for me, I wouldn't be there anyway. Growing up, I grew up in Colorado, and I went to school at UA, so I always remember it was so hard for my parents to come and visit, and there just wasn't very many options, and the hotels are, as you mentioned, very high in price. And just in my profession and talking to some of our fans that come from different, states, different areas of the country, it can be difficult for them to find places to stay when they're in town, so I just kind of see the opportunity for it. My dad has done short-term rentals in Denver for 45 years. He's the one that actually owns the property, and I live there full-time, so it's just, I just want to do what he does and learn from him and be able to do the same thing in my town, not Colorado.
Did you, you mentioned you live there full-time.
Yes.
Did, you mentioned your father was engaged in short-term rentals?
Yes.
Okay. What's your actual background? Have you had any experience managing or working in any way?
Yeah, so I, not in short term, I worked at University Downs, the apartment complex, when I was in college with more of the long-term leases there. And I've just done a lot with him with helping promote his businesses in Denver. So I've learned from him. I've never managed one on my own, but he's kind of willing to help me with all of that.
If this was granted,
Mhm.
would you be the primary contact?
Yes.
So you're available 24/7 when it's
Yes.
rented? Okay. And where would you stay when this, in
So
town?
in town. Both of my college roommates still own houses, still live in town, and they have extra bedrooms that they've offered me to stay at on the few nights that I am potentially able to rent it.
And could you, Ms. Hayes, go to the aerial? I had a question on the lot line and the driveway. The one that shows the red lot line zoomed in, right there. I know sometimes the overlay lines don't match exact lot lines. Explain the egress on your driveway and how it veers off to your carport in the back. And I see a drive-through lane in your neighbor's front yard.
Mhm.
And then also a parking area adjacent to the rear of your parking, where the car is shown
Yeah.
in the top right corner of the property box. Is that a shared drive?
No, so the gentleman who rents the house back there, his name's Bill, so he does park there sometimes, but his driveway is actually the darker color, so all of the lighter color is part of our property.
Okay, so the front yard drive-through,
Mhm.
that's just predated y'all being there and connecting?
Yes.
So all of your driveway contiguous to your home that's shown, that's concreted, is solely for your use or your whomever?
Yes.
Okay, not your neighbor?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we don't currently have anyone signed up to speak. Would anyone who's present like to come forward at this time and speak for or against? Okay, that's a no. So we're going to move to closing public comment and going to board discussion. But I do have a question for staff. The recommendation of 5, could you go back to the diagram the customer or petitioner provided? Mr. Gardner, based on what you've already suggested, you're comfortable with 5 cars?
Yes, I think 5 cars is suitable. The space label number 2 gives me a little pause that vehicle could block the access for the vehicles trying to leave from parking spaces 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I don't know that that's actually long enough area for 1 and 2 cars to sit there and not block the rest of the access. And if you're going to have to move a car and back it out into Hargrove Road to get another car out, the traffic volume on Hargrove Road, that's just not something we want to do.
Okay. Yeah, that angle I think is a little clear that's on the screen.
Yeah, that one there, I think gives you a little bit better idea of what's actually available to park there in front of that. Maybe it was an enclosed garage at one time, and then allow a vehicle to pass on to go
Right.
beside the right side of the house.
So if you're comfortable with 5?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, if we could, let's start with Mr. Gilliam, comments.
After looking at that site plan, I would agree that it seems tight in that area for 6 vehicles and 12 adults. Seems a lot of adults in one property. I would agree with the staff's recommendation.
I just don't like 10 people in a short-term rental. That sounds like a party. And so I'm more comfortable with 8 adults and 4 vehicles. And especially with this being the first time that she's being granted an opportunity to do it. And the probation, if you come back and there are no issues, then I could see possibly, but I just don't like double digits in short-term rentals.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree and support Ms. Coley's comments. It's been very rare, the instances that we've actually allowed 10. And oftentimes, that's going to be something, a proof of concept with the petitioner being successful with no issues, because that number swells. And especially if you had a lot of children there as well, that gets to be a pretty big crowd. So I'm in favor of granting the petition with the 8 adults and 4 vehicles.
I agree. I'm in favor of 8 adults, 4 vehicles, 30 nights for the term of 1 year.
I'm also in agreement with my fellow board members with 4 vehicles and 8 adults.
If there's no further discussion, we'll move to a reading of the petition and a vote. In the case of ZBA-14-23, Haley Gillian petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 624 Hargrove Road, zoned R1, Council District 2, subject to the following conditions: a maximum of 8 adults, a maximum of 4 vehicles parked off-street, a maximum of 30 nights in the initial 1 calendar year probationary period, and also subject to accessory structures cannot be occupied by anyone at any time, and a City of Tuscaloosa business license must be obtained before engaging in the short-term rental. Voting with Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
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 The petition passed. Okay, Mr. Bowen, we're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
So we've got 7:19 on the back clock, so if we could, at 7:25, if everyone could be back.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you. Okay, if we could, let's get started back.
All right, next case is ZBA 1523, Todd and Allison Turner petition for a special exception for a short-term rental. This is in a historic district located at 51 Guildswood, Zone R1H, Council District 4. So again, here we have the location of the property and that zoning. Here's an aerial view of the property. And then we have an active short-term rental map that shows a few other short-term rentals in the area. Here's a view of the house from the street, as well as that parking area. And here we have the applicable regulations. So this is also a new short-term rental request. It's a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom house. There were no violations found or complaints received. The request is for 8 adults and 4 vehicles. If approved, staff does recommend the 8 adults and 4 vehicles. We did receive several comments for this application, at least one in support, one in opposition. We did receive a petition that had at least 20 signatures in opposition to this application, and we do have the petitioner here to speak in person.
Any questions for Mr. Bowen? Okay, thank you.
Hey, I'm Todd Turner, 5411 Savannah Avenue, Tuscaloosa, 35406. My wife, Allison Turner, same address. Only thing I'll add is this has been our home for 12 years. Recently, we've moved, still in town, but close by to care for my dad, whose health was failing. We plan on moving back to the house, maybe the 4 to 5 year range, and we've weighed short-term rental versus long-term rental, and we feel that short-term is a better fit for Guildswood. We love Guildswood. We love our neighbors. We would never, do anything to harm the character of the neighborhood, but we feel it's a better fit than long-term, considering that we're going to be back in 4 to 5 years. We've sent an email, you've probably read it, to all the neighbors. We're going to operate really less than is allowed, even the 30 days probation period. We're looking at 7 game days, possibly a graduation, and that's it. Responsible adults, minimum age limit, background checks, all the above.
Now, have you, Mr.
Turner.
Sorry, I'm lacking sleep right now. So, Mr. Turner, have you you or your wife had any experience with managing rentals in the past?
Not short-term, but a vast experience with long-term. We currently have one. It's been in place for 18 years. We've had several others. I have experience with commercial long-term rentals as well. Not involved in any of those right now, but do have experience with those.
And I read the letter with all the comments on both sides, for and against, but the letter we got actually today that you forwarded,
Okay.
the letter and the other part of the email, and read through that. And from what I read, or we read collectively, it was pretty thorough on what you lined out. You just reiterated that on the number of nights that you were really interested in renting. You obviously understand, by formerly living in the neighborhood, the football weekend dynamic that is across this whole area, downtown and UA. So it sounded like you were possibly going to offer a shuttle ride.
Yes.
You said you may do that?
Offerings,
yes. I'm familiar with your neighborhood. I drove the site today, looking at all the cases, and I wasn't sure by address where it was, but as soon as I saw it on the map and drove by, you do have that outlet, which is 2-way, leaving your driveway on the side, which I think is beneficial to mitigating some issues with traffic around the entire loop. If you were approved, I would stress that in your comments, you said you would be around and be visible. To folks who aren't familiar with our footprint, maybe a new renter, I would encourage them to use that as an egress, because they really don't need a car once they park to go to a game. I mean, that's a given. You can't park anywhere closer. But I thought you covered a lot of objections in that letter of what a lot of the neighbors had, which were valid objections in there. So I didn't have any further questions per se on your intentions or what you'd already laid out in that document, that how you were going to manage it. So I didn't know if anyone else on the board had any questions specific to that. None? Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to offer to us?
Maybe that, I'm by the house, my wife, one of us, probably right now 5 to 7 days per week, and that will not change.
I noticed there was a dumpster in the back. What are y'all doing now?
We moved and we furnished the home, so the Guildswood home is slightly furnished, and we just have a lot of cleaning out to do. We're going to eventually replace flooring, paint, do some cosmetic things.
And it is furnished now, or will be?
Pretty much.
Partially.
Partially, okay.
We did take some furniture with us.
Okay.
Can it be rented out today?
Yes, there is, it could be rented out to one of the bedrooms. And there's a full den. We could easily place a bedroom if needed, if someone needed to go stay there. We almost allowed family to stay there during the funeral process with his father.
When will y'all have all the work that you plan to do finished?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I'm
When
sorry.
will the work
The,
be finished?
the work that you're planning to do, when will you have that?
Cosmetic stuff.
It's
So
cosmetic.
it's just, we have 3 boys that lived with us there, and we had to move out very quickly to take care of his father and move into the other home to get him in. So we've got some walls to paint and that sort of stuff, so it should be pretty soon. We expect to have everything completed.
So I'm sorry. I interrupted.
No, but the bedrooms are 4 bedrooms now, and,
There's actually
actually
5
5.
bedrooms.
okay.
We consider one an office, but there's actually 5 bedrooms.
Okay, so but they're telling us 4 bedrooms and all that's ready now, and you just put some beds in and
Correct.
okay, just want to make sure.
We live there, so yes,
Sure.
it's livable for sure.
Just making sure there's no renovation going on, because we've had that previously, and we've continued some things because of renovation, but you're not renovating at this time or anything.
There are no current renovations in process.
Any other questions? No? All right, thank you. Okay, it looks like we've got one signature of Miss Molly Snow.
Good evening. It's been a long one.
Good evening.
It has.
I was not scheduled to speak tonight on behalf of our neighborhood, but
Would you mind,
excuse
for
me,
the record?
Molly Snow, 52 Guildswood. I live next door to the Turners. I was not scheduled to speak on behalf of our neighborhood, but we've had some COVID issues all of a sudden as of last night, as well as people not being able to still get off work at this point in time. So I've tried to gather my thoughts. I hope you will bear with me. I did try, but it might be a little discombobulated. So tonight before you is an application that has the potential to greatly disrupt all we as a neighborhood have tried to protect for over a century. Back in the 60s, the residents of Guildswood started to purchase all of the land, enveloping the neighborhood for that purpose. The residents of Guildswood are aware of the City of Tuscaloosa's commissioned studies showing the value that our urban residential setting is to both the recruitment of business and to maintaining a virtual urban community. It's very important. We are valuable to the City of Tuscaloosa for those 2 reasons, based on the City of Tuscaloosa's studies. When the city decided to legalize STRs, there was an agreement with the residents of historic neighborhoods and city officials that the integrity of the charming historic communities must be preserved. That has not happened. I give 2 examples, Caplewood Drive and Sherwood Drive, and both of those properties back up to the edge of our protected land, and they have been the integrity of them has very much diminished. For all the reasons that everybody have complained about students and short-term rentals or year-long leases while they were in school, you walk around our neighborhood and you will see evidence of those problems. I was not going to address those because you have them in our petition, but that is very much a problem. This fall, when the City Council imposed a moratorium on STR applications, our neighborhood was gladdened. One of the reasons given for the moratorium was to strengthen protections on neighborhood. And here we are. 22 of the 27 potentially affected households in our neighborhood are strongly opposed to the rezoning adjustment request by the Turners. I could also argue, I wrote to you that we had one person who did not attempt outreach, and that neighbor is a recluse. She has been in our neighborhood probably about 40 years, maybe give or take. The other abstained neighborhood, the married couple, one felt one way, one felt another. So you could you could argue that 24 27 neighborhoods are strongly opposed.
That's everything you sent in the email earlier. You're reading?
Today, it says 22, it says 3 are not opposed, it says 1 abstains, and 1 nobody can ever reach. And I tried multiple times. I went to every home in our neighborhood, even though I knew which ones were not opposed, to make sure everybody in our neighborhood had a voice. I want to know if you all hear our voices. I would like to ask, what is the purpose of designating an area a historic district?
Ma'am, we were going to hold a 3-minute. Can you kind of wrap up?
I'm sure I am, but I'm
You're good.
speaking for all these people.
Okay, you are going to speak for everyone?
I'm speaking for everyone. Yes, this is my neighborhood.
Okay,
represented
okay.
right
Then if we could cut the alarm off, please.
She's got plenty of time based on her.
Okay, thank you very much, because as you can tell, we are all very invested in this. I want to know what the purpose of designating our area a historic district. Our neighborhood thought the purpose was to preserve and protect that area. We worked diligently and very hard to get designated a historic district. We thought it a necessary distinction to preserve and protect our neighborhood's attractive nature. Unfortunately or fortunately, decide for yourselves, along with the historic district designation came the Historic Preservation Commission's rules and regulations. Our neighborhood is now bound by these, and our choices as homeowners of what we can or cannot do to our structures is restricted. Will this board also take away our unanimous voice and right to choose that our neighborhood remain a neighborhood? I know you know from the petition, we are a one-way circle. Parking, there is none. We tape off our neighborhood during game days to prevent out-of-towners parking because it is so dangerous. We are all concerned about already on game days, we have a ton of traffic that always goes the wrong way. They do not look at our one-way signs, and they do not respect our 25-mile-per-hour speed limits. The other concerns we have is that this property will not be owner-occupied. The Turners, being relatives of the original homeowners that built the home that we all knew and raised 3 children in, they knew what this neighborhood was when they bought into it. They knew the structure of the neighborhood. The neighborhood also feels that the Turners' reasons for application and their explanation to the neighbors to be disingenuous. As they stated, they do have other rental properties. They have never had their children, to our knowledge, most of the neighbors' knowledge, attend our school zone. They have now moved to a new neighborhood that is zoned for the same school system our neighborhood is zoned for. We are a very special neighborhood. We may not all socialize together, but we can tell you every single person, every neighbor that lives in every house on our street. We get together all the time for neighborhood meetings, potluck suppers, etc. We own ownership in the stock of the land that surrounds our property to quote unquote protect it so that we didn't have a Burger King go up on River Road, Jack Warner Parkway, in half of our backyards. We look out for each other. Once our neighbors move in, they very rarely ever leave. It has never been a transitory neighborhood. We have one 95-year-old currently living in her parents' home, and she's been in our neighborhood at least 30-something years. Numerous of our neighbors have lived in this neighborhood between 30 and 50 years. Usually when a home comes on the market, it is due to a death of somebody who has been there that long. With the stroke of a gavel, you members have the power to allow a business in what has always been a hidden jewel and a highly sought-after neighborhood in downtown Tuscaloosa. Please hear and respect our voices. Would you like to live next to a short-term rental in your neighborhood when you are that invested in your neighborhood? I listened recently to how you think the city is addressing this, but I'm here to tell you it isn't working, or you wouldn't have all this opposition for all these other properties saying the same things. Please hear our voices, and we ask for your thoughtful consideration to oppose this special exemption. Thank you. Sorry I took over 3 minutes.
No, you had
You're
the
fine.
time.
Thank you.
you.
Would anyone else like to come forward and speak either for or against? Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned earlier, and when you looked at the
Give us your name and your
area and
address.
perhaps drove around.
Your name and address, please, ma'am.
Rosemarie Childress. I live at 34 Gilswood.
Thank you.
Incidentally, I live across the street from the property, but I never got a notice from the city. But you mentioned there was a two-way street going out to Jack Warner Park. That I debate two-way. If two cars are coming, one has to get off the street, and many times it is in the Turner's driveway that we have to get so that the other car can pass. So it's really not a two-way street, and it's quite dangerous when you try to go around the corner.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. When I referenced that earlier, and I could lean on Mr. Gardner from our engineering office, it is very narrow. We've had that discussion, but is it technically a one-way or a two-way street?
I don't believe that street is signed as one way.
Yeah, I didn't see that either. Yes, ma'am, I understand it's extremely narrow. The point I was making to to avoid doing any driving in the interior, that house is the only house, correct me if I'm wrong, that you can come up, turn into their driveway, come out of their driveway and go down without impacting any other drive. I mean, that's just the eye test today when I did it. But, oh yes, across there, yes. But other than that, again, it was the most minimal impact if you did follow that path. That was the point I was making, but thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for or against? Yes, ma'am. And if you will, please just state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Kate Schreiber Jones. I live at 27 Guildswood. I would just like to comment further on an aspect that Molly raised regarding the fact that we have in Guildswood an association in which a compact has been established and adhered to by the members of Guildswood. And specifically what I'm speaking about is the compact to which bought the land surrounding Guildswood in order to preserve it. It's a compact. And when you buy a home in Guildswood, you also buy into that association through a share. So I just wanted to say that my compact is with my neighbors. My compact is actually also with the Turners. However, my compact is not with folks who would be coming for a short-term rental. I'm very concerned that they don't have the buy-in to the neighborhood that we do. So I would just like to convey to you the strength of the opposition to a situation that threatens the compact that exists now within the neighborhood. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I have a question. Does the compact allow for long-term rental? If they wanted to rent the home out, could they do that?
The compact is concerning the land that's been bought.
It's the
There's-
buffer land.
The buffer land,
Okay.
yes.
But
Now,
they
it
could
doesn't address rentals, for my understanding. Or does it? Yeah.
Ma'am, if you want to speak, we're going to brief. You'll need to come to the podium. Sorry, we have.
I just was wondering about that. Thank you.
Okay, we have had long-term rentals.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak, either for or against? Yes, ma'am.
Y'all said she had your time.
I'm Katie Bird. I live at 37 Guildswood. And I just wanted to, I know people have addressed the traffic. Even though in Guildswood, we have the roads blocked off, not blocked off, but we have it roped off where people cannot park. Now, even today with the residents there, we still have people on game days going the wrong way at fast speeds. We have had people come into our neighborhood and come up to our houses and because they don't know where they are, because they can't figure out where they're supposed to be. We had one particular man pass out in my yard. We had to have the police come get him. So we've had these problems, and this is just going to make that even worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for or against? Okay. Mr. Turner, you've heard several of your neighbors speak. It's your opportunity to choose to or not to rebut anything or make a comment to that. That's standard for us to allow that.
I'll just say that I've never seen anything in our homeowners association that addresses short-term rentals. I've been to many meetings and read the minutes of meetings I couldn't attend. It's never been brought up. Buffer area, we own 1/28th of it, okay? I'm not renting the buffer area. I'm renting my home for 7 or 8 weekends out of the year for the next 4 or 5 years, potentially. There's going to be less traffic in my driveway than there would be on a normal Saturday with the Turners living there. We have 3 boys, 24, 18, and 14. There's probably 10 to 12 cars typically at my house. This is scaled down from that. We feel short-term is a better fit for the neighborhood. You know, long-term, there's somebody in there all the time, that it's wear and tear on the house. It's less of a presence with the short term. We're going to be responsible. There's problems or issues, you call us and we'll address them. I think Allison had something.
Well, it's our home. Even though we don't live there currently, it's our home. We're there frequently. I work at the university. I go by on my lunch break. It is our home. We love that home. And we love our neighbors and we love that neighborhood. We wanted to keep that house in our family for the second generation living there in the family. And we want to keep it there. We want our children to be able to use it for a lifetime. So this is our home, and we would never do anything to harm our home that we love and we're very proud of, or that neighborhood that we love and we're very proud of. The whole time we've lived there, to my knowledge, I've never had an issue with our neighbors complaining about our children or what our activities. And as he stated, it's going to be very much a scale down. We enjoyed game days. We love game days. And we had a lot of people there, and we had friends and family that park there, that if there's current renters for that particular game, they will not be able to do so. So there will be, having the people on the road will not be there because they're going to have to be in the driveway. So there'll be less traffic. And we do know very much how the traffic is on game days through Guildswood and through downtown. A lot of it is walking traffic, but yes, there's a lot of traffic that people may go speeding through there, but that happens any other night too. I live right there by Jack Warner Parkway. It's the first house, believe us. We've heard a lot of the traffic that comes through there. But like I said, it will be less than while with us not being there, at least, and even with a short-term rental.
And y'all did say y'all are just moving locally around town.
Yes, we moved to the towns.
Okay.
We moved there because Guildswood has 3 levels. His father did not need to be around stairs, so we had to purchase a home that he could have a single on the bottom level to where he could live. And so that was the purpose of it.
Gotcha.
Currently, our children have fallen in love with being around children their age. There's not a lot of children their age in the neighborhood, so they do love it. And as far as dressing, while we don't use the school zone, our children go to a private school. They've been there. My youngest has been there since he was 4 years old. He is a graduate from that private school. So it's just a personal preference. It has nothing to do with whether or not we like the school system or not. It's just that was kind of what our choice was. And they're currently still in that school zone. In that school now. And yes, it is the same school zone or zone for, Northridge, I believe.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Do y'all have anything else, or is y'all
I
good?
can't think of anything. I'm very sorry that everyone's upset in our neighborhood, but we would never do anything to hurt that. And they can always call us if they had a problem.
Okay.
We're very available.
Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we're going to move to close public comment and open board discussion, starting with Mr. Gilliam.
I understand everybody's concern. Seems like that's been same with a lot of these short-term rentals, similar to Brandon Place, but it seems that the petitioner really cares about the neighborhood and the property, and also seems the petitioner has a pretty good plan and would like to go there, so I'm in agreement with their request.
The passion that you shared and the feelings that you have about your neighborhood, the passion that you've shared and the feelings that you have about your neighborhood, I do understand. I do understand that. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Short-term rental is all over the city of Tuscaloosa. Some of the most exclusive neighborhoods have short-term rental. We've heard Sherwood, when they came, they had opposition. Cable, all of these places had opposition. What you spoke to in terms of students renting and leasing property, that's not short-term rental. Short-term rental is specific. It's 30 days, 30 nights, 45 nights. It's typically confined to game day weekend. We do a lot of these approvals, and people usually don't really rent it out that often. Very rarely do they go the whole 30 nights. So I'm in favor of granting them the initial 8 adults, 4 vehicles, 30 nights, and 1 year probationary period. And like I tell everybody, you use 311 and let us know if they have issues. If it's directly related to them, the speeding through the neighborhood, is it their short-term renter? Not just speeding through the neighborhood, but the short-term renter is doing it. Let us know, because that's what stops short-term rental. your complaints and problems that you have and that you tell us about it. That's what stops the short-term rental. And they've said they love the neighborhood, so call them. If there's an issue, slightest little issue, call them and tell them. They said they're second generation, just like you talked about, they're second generation. They want their kids to have the house. So I don't believe they're gonna do anything to take away from the integrity of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow board members. You've got a great neighborhood. The passion you've exhibited, your concern, every opinion is valid. A lot of the issues that several of you mentioned you have, I believe Caplewood, and I apologize, my son was one of the ones who backed up to Pinehurst, so he probably isn't one of the renters you would have liked over there as a youth. But in saying that, you live adjacent to a college campus. As historic as Pinehurst is and Guildswood are, beautiful homes, very desirable homes, UA has been there longer than those neighborhoods, and UA has grown, and y'all have seen it, those of you who have been there as long as you've said you've lived there, the growth, and a lot of the issues you see, if, I didn't get enough sleep, Mr. Turner, I'm sorry, struggling with your name. If Mr. Turner has a short-term rental or not, everything you've said has nothing to do with a specific short-term rental. And all of those issues that are part of the success of this town are what they are. And fortunately, you live in a beautiful area adjacent to a beautiful university and a beautiful downtown, and you have great neighbors. The fear you have is very valid, but at the same time, a short-term rental that is regulated by an owner who you know and knew his family and has been open in what he has communicated to everyone, his intentions on the time to do, and he's accessible. The fear of your neighborhood falling off and changing dramatically, I'm sorry, I logically do not see that. And again, I've mentioned it in several other cases. You know who to contact, just like the case earlier across the river. Everyone knew that individual. He's going to be accessible. I can't speak, I don't know the Turners, but they own that home. If I was to do short-term rental, which I don't, I would be very, very cautious to an investment that I have, to not have it go to pot or degrade my investment and the character of the neighborhood. All that being said, I'm in favor of granting the petition with a total of 8 adults, 4 vehicles parked off-street for an initial probationary period of 30 nights over 1 year.
I agree with my previous board members. I'm in favor.
Yeah, and this is another tough one to me, because we hear you. You know, when the short-term rental came to my neighborhood, it was the first one. It was right across the street from my house. I had the exact same concerns that you did, and you know, I'm just going to be honest with you. I really hadn't noticed it at all. I think the difference in this one and the last one was, you know, basically there are other short-term rentals in the vicinity of this property that are already doing short-term rentals. So I'm going to be with my board members and be in favor of this one as well.
Okay, there's no further discussion. We're going to move to a reading of the petition and a vote. In the matter of ZBA-15-23, Todd and Allison Turner petition for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property in a historic district located at 51 Guildswood, zoned R-1H in Council District 4, with subject to the following conditions. Maximum of 8 adults, 4 vehicles parked off-street, a total of 30 nights in 1 probationary year. Also subject to further conditions, accessory structures cannot be occupied by anyone at any time, and a City of Tuscaloosa business license must be obtained prior to engaging in short-term rental. Voting with Mr. Gillian.
Yes.
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 The petition passed.
Next case is ZBA 1623. Alice Smith petitions for a special exception for a short-term rental at 29 Arlington Drive. This property is on R3 in Council District 7. So here we have a location of the property as well as an aerial view. Here we have a map showing other active short-term rentals in the area. Here we have a view of the house from the street. You can see the parking area included. Next are the applicable regulations. So this is also a new short-term rental request. The house is 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. We have not received any complaints or found any violations. The request is for 8 adults and 4 vehicles. If approved, staff recommends 3 vehicles and 6 adults. We did not receive any public comment for this application, and the petitioner is here to speak in person.
Any questions for Mr. Bowen? No? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elise Smith. I live at 2703 Saratoga Lane, and I am here to apply for an STR exception. Just to answer a question before you ask it, I don't have any experience with short-term rentals, but I do have one long-term rental. For the past couple of years, I've just listened to and have some close relationships with people who do this for a living, and just have been kind of inspired by them and their work, improving homes and putting families in them that enjoy them. So my goal is to, give the house the love that it needs. It's a really cute house in a neat little neighborhood, and then just give a couple of families a few good weekends a year to enjoy it and come for parents' weekend or homecoming games or the homecoming game or graduation or whatever. So that's it. Any questions?
You mentioned you had experience with a long-term rental.
I do. I have one property that I'm renting out, and it's going really well so far.
Is that here in town?
It's here in town, yes.
Okay. Are you responsible for, who's the go-to emergency contact?
I am.
You are? Okay. And will you be filling that role for the STR if it's approved?
I will.
Okay. And it looks like you've got 3 bed, 2 bath, okay.
Yes.
And rules and regulations, have you gotten that sorted out?
A little bit. I do plan on installing a security system. We will do background checks and vet our potential boarders pretty strictly in respect to the neighborhood. So I'm still learning how to do all that, but but I do hope to to use some discretion with who stays there. And like I say, I envision 2 families, an adult couple in each of the 2 bigger bedrooms and bunk beds in the 3rd bedroom. Just pretty straightforward, I think. Not lots of.
And it's vacant now, is that right?
It's vacant now.
Will it remain vacant if it's approved in the off time?
Yes, it will. That is the plan.
Any other questions, Petitioner? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we do not have anyone signed up to speak for or against. Is there anyone still left who's interested in speaking? No? Okay. In that case, we're going to close public comment and move to board discussion.
The only thing I have is, I see the staff recommended 3 vehicles and 6 adults, and the request is 4 and 8. Can you pull up the map to show the parking? Looks to me that just based off this space and their parking, I would recommend with the staff's recommendation.
I agree with my fellow board member.
Yeah, I agree as well, that 3 cars and 6 adults maximum. And it's tied to viewing the bedroom count along with the parking there and all off-street parking.
I agree in favor of the staff recommendation.
I also agree with the staff recommendation.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, we'll go to a reading of the petition and a vote. In the matter of ZBA-16-23, Elise Smith petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 29 Arlington Drive, zoned R3, Council District 7, subject to the following conditions. A maximum of 6 adults, 3 vehicles parked off-street, a total of 30 nights in a 1-year probationary period. Also subject to the following conditions: accessory structures cannot be occupied by anyone at any time, and a City of Tuscaloosa business license must be obtained prior to engaging in short-term rental. Voting with Mr. Gillian.
Yes.
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 Your petition passed.
Next case is ZBA 1723. Willie Johnson petitions for a special exception for a short-term rental. This is at 3611 Fourth Court East, Zone R1 in Council District 7. So here we have the location of the property, as well as an aerial view. Here's a view from that public right-of-way. This is the parking area for the property. And then here we have those applicable regulations. So this is also a new short-term rental request. The house is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. There's no violations or complaints for this property. The petitioner did state that 2 cars can fit in the garage, so they are requesting 4 vehicles and 4 adults. If approved, staff recommends 2 vehicles and 4 adults. We did receive 2 comments in opposition to this petition, but the petitioner is here to speak in person.
Any questions for Mr. Bowen? None? Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Good evening. My name is Willie Johnson, and I am petitioning for short-term rooms at 3611 Fourth Court East on behalf of myself and my daughter.
Okay. Tell us about your experience. Have you had any experience with either a short-term rental or long-term rental?
I am experienced long-term rentals. I own rental property for over 20 years. I have no experience in short-term.
Okay. Do you currently reside in the home?
No. It's my daughter's house. It is furnished, and she's lived in Washington State, and she come home probably 2 or 3 times a year for a couple of weeks at a time. And we decided to just, in that time she's not here, to try to rent it some.
Okay.
short-term.
Well, Mr. Johnson, will you be the responsible party for any issues that may arise if it was approved?
Sure I will.
Okay. Do you live here in town?
I do live in Tuscaloosa.
Okay. So you're accessible 24/7 in that
I am.
space? Okay. Great. And like you said, it's empty other than your daughter coming home to visit. Other than that, it stays idle or empty, the house?
Say it one more time.
The house, when your daughter's not there, it's vacant?
It's vacant, but it is rent. it is furnished.
Furnished and upkept, okay. Great. Are there any other questions?
No.
And the last thing, rules and regulations. Have you prepared anything for a potential renter, short-term renter?
Well, I have not yet.
Okay. If this process moves forward and you choose to go forward with it, you will need to do that.
We will.
You will need to prepare rules and written posted rules and regulations.
Yeah, and basically, the only rules that I would like to have is, no partying. And I'm kind of want to cater to like traveling nurses, maybe some weekend football games or whatever, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. And that'll come too. And there's some resources. Ms. Hayes can point you in that direction to help you on that, or you just point you there where you can see kind of what's typical for that.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, we don't have anyone signed up. Does anyone like to come forward and speak for or against? No? Okay, we're going to close public comment and move to board discussion.
I believe like the last short-term rental, go with the staff's recommendation of 2 vehicles and 4 adults.
I agree with my fellow board member.
Yeah, I agree with using staff recommendation as well.
I agree. I'm in favor.
Also agree, I'm in favor.
Okay. All right, if there's no further comment, we're going to move to a reading of the petition and a vote. In the matter of ZBA-17-23, Mr. Willie Johnson petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 3611 4th Court East, zoned R1, Council District 7, subject to the following conditions: a total of 4 adults maximum, a total of 2 vehicles parked off-street, a total of 30 nights in the 1-year probationary period. Subject to the additional conditions, accessory structures cannot be occupied by anyone at any time, and a City of Tuscaloosa business license must be obtained. Voting with Mr. Gillian.
Yes.
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 Your petition passed.
All right, and the last case before you tonight is ZBA 1823. Troy Rooney petitions for a special exception for a short-term rental of a property in a historic district. This is at 1010 Myrtlewood Drive, Zone R3H, Council District 4. So again, here we have the zoning and location of that property. Previous property was approved right across the street. This is at 1010 Myrtlewood Drive. Here we have a view that shows all the active short-term rentals in the area. This is a view from the street showing the driveway, and then this is just an additional view of that structure. So here we have the applicable regulations. This is a new short-term rental request. The house is a 4-bedroom, 5-bathroom house. There's no violations or complaints received for this property. This property did receive approval from the board under a separate ownership. It was for 2 vehicles and 4 adults. They're asking for 2 vehicles and 4 adults, and if approved, staff recommends 2 vehicles and 4 adults. We did receive at least 2 comments in opposition to this application. We have the petitioners here to speak in person.
Any questions for Mr. Bowen? None?
Did the previous short-term rental have any complaints?
It did not.
Okay, thank you.
Troy Rooney, 1010 Myrtlewood Drive.
Mr. Rooney, did you recently purchase the home?
That's correct.
Are you living there?
No, not full-time. We're here for a couple weeks to do this meeting and meet with some rental property managers. But I currently live full-time in Orlando, Florida.
In Orlando?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you have experience with short-term rentals?
I do not with short-term rentals. I do manage 2 long-term rentals in Orlando. And my sister managed a short-term rental Airbnb in Nashville for over 5 years. So I've heard a lot of experience from her.
What are your intentions if this is approved as far as managing the property here, someone in town who can respond to an issue?
Yeah, I definitely want someone in town to manage it. I know how vital it is to have a good property manager. Being one myself for a long term. My wife and I went to University of Alabama, so we plan on coming down often for football games ourselves. We're going to some basketball games this weekend. So we're going to use it personally. We see it as a house to have in our family for, years down the road. Hopefully at some point our children go to the university and can use the house themselves. But for the time being, rent it out other football game weekends. And graduation, we want to provide a home, for other families just like us that want to come to visit Tuscaloosa.
But if I heard you correctly, you haven't contracted with anyone yet?
I have not yet, no.
Okay. That's something you're going to need to do contingent upon getting granted an approval.
Absolutely. We have the contract from Kim Roberts, and we've spoken with, I apologize, but I forget the other gentleman's name. So when we bought the house, we were told that there could be a long-term renter. We were just told no today. So that's why we didn't sign a short-term rental management property before. We plan on locking that up.
So I caught most of that. You said you did sign with Ms. Roberts, or you did not?
We have not signed the contract yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
They thought they were going to have a long-term rental.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I didn't hear that right. Could we go to the street view, please? right there. There was a question by Miss Ford, who had to leave the meeting earlier. She drove by, she lives in the area, and she drove by this site, and I think from the sidewalk, she looked down the drive. Explain to us, looks like a concrete or brick step in the porte-cochere there that goes into the porch, or onto the porch. It sticks out. If that brick border or column across from the step on the right, what's the width there? Do you know, as far as?
I don't know what the exact width is, but I have a pretty big truck and I pulled into it.
So you were able to drive through to the back gate?
Yes.
Okay, in a truck?
Yes.
Okay. That was a concern she had on the width there.
Yeah, it's understandable. But yeah, I was able to get the truck back there.
Okay, and I know your staff's recommended 4.2, and I believe that was your ask as well.
Yeah.
And you probably heard tonight, parking, if approved, it has to be fully off-street and not encroaching on the sidewalk in any way.
Yep.
And obviously, no overflow guests and no one parking on the street, period. Or really, there's nothing above this capacity if approved.
Understood, yes.
Any other questions? No. Do you have anything else for us?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
We do not have anyone signed up, and doesn't look like we've got anyone else to speak either way, fortunately. So we're going to move to board comments and close public conversation.
Being that this property has been in the past a short-term rental, is under different ownership, and there obviously was no complaints with the past one, then I see no reason why we do the same here, assuming that they will get a property manager, being that he lives in Orlando.
So the stipulation is you have to get somebody here in town, so, yeah, you just have to have somebody in town. Okay. So, I see no problem, but having somebody in town in place stipulation.
Yeah, I agree with that being a stipulation, and there are several providers out there locally who do this. But yeah, that's a must in order to be able to engage in it. We've got to have someone comfortable, the city, everyone's comfortable with, in that they're responsible here, because things can happen. Okay, and obviously I did respect, you mentioned you had some exposure to long-term rental and then a family member who had short-term rental experience, so that's a good asset. I'm in favor.
I agree, I'm in favor.
I also agree, I'm in favor pending the hiring of a property manager.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll go to reading the petition and a vote. In the matter of ZBA-18-23, DST Collective LLC, Troy Rooney, petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property in a historic district located at 1010 Myrtlewood Drive, Zone R3H in Council District 4, subject to the following conditions: a total of 4 adults, 2 vehicles to be parked off-street, 30 nights in a 1 calendar year probationary period, with additional conditions that no accessory structures can be occupied by anyone at any time, and a City of Tuscaloosa business license must be obtained before engaging in the practice of short-term rental. Voting with Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
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 It's approved. You're welcome. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna be really fast with this. Y'all have already had a chance to review these minor changes to our bylaws. It's hopefully going to reduce the amount of time that you're here, introducing a limit to the petitioners, how long they can speak, introducing a limit to the number of speakers for and against a petition, limiting that time the speakers can present, and updating chair to presiding officer. Again, this is just everything that y'all have already had a chance to read. Any questions?
We're changing it to 2 minutes?
So we're changing the rebuttal to 2 minutes. So the petitioner coming back up and saying something, we're gonna limit that time to 2 minutes. The people who are speaking for or against the petition will get 5 minutes each, only for, and 4 against. And then limiting the petitioner to 10 minutes.
Are we gonna be communicating for a while, because people are used to
Yeah.
how we've been?
We're gonna advertise it on the website, advertise it on the front and back most likely, but we're definitely gonna advertise it on the flyers as well. We're gonna make it very known,
Okay.
gonna utilize those sign-up sheets.
And it may be in here, and I think goes without saying, Ms. Ford had a concern that it didn't state from her reading of it that we had when we close public discussion, that we have a board comments.
Yeah.
I kind of alluded to it when I glanced at it, but she just threw that out there, so.
Which it should still, I know it was in the original.
I think it says, it alludes to a board comment, and that suffices. I don't think it has to, anything special
Yeah.
has to be put in there.
Y'all will still get your time to speak, no limit on that.
All right? So we just need to motion and vote.
Yep.
So move.
Second.
All in favor of adopting the revised, what is the title on it?
Bylaws or rules of procedure.
All those in favor of voting, all those in favor for the revision of the current rules of procedure.
Yeah.
Does he need to read that?
Do I need to
Yeah.
read that? I guess.
You wanna read it? Yeah.
That's what she said.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. All those in favor of voting for the resolution adopting rules for the transaction of business of the City of Tuscaloosa Board of Adjustment, voting with Mr. Gillian?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
it was approved. Thank you. All right.